now, 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, all with you in studio today. Our summer intern, Trenton Craxner, in the building as well. Thank you so much for stopping by on the program this afternoon. We've got a boatload to get to today, and we are appreciative you are joining us, whether it's on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, online at 580WIBW.com, or checking us out on YouTube at 580 Sports Talk. We will get started off here with the Kansas City Royals in just a moment. Royals dropped their opener against the Seattle Mariners last night. Told you George Kirby was tough. He is a dog. And we're going to get to that. Tough night for the Royals offensively. Not Brady Singer's finest hour either. So we'll get to that here. Our pal RJ Anderson, friend of the program from CBS Sports. He also put out his first quarter of the season MLB team grades. We are going to get to that. He gave an A to the Royals, but it's maybe the most pessimistic A I've ever seen. Like, even I didn't get A's this pessimistic when I was in school. So we're going to get to that and why he is not super bearish, or bullish, I should say, on the Royals coming up here in a little bit. Also this hour, big news from the college basketball world. Known criminal Doug Gottlieb, with no previous coaching experience at any level, is now a Division I basketball coach. Why this is going to fail miserably, we'll get to that a little bit later on this hour. Also today, plenty of Chiefs talk to get to, the latest updates on what the NFL schedule will look like. Former Chief has a new home in free agency. We will get to that. Bill Barnwell with his thoughts on who the Chiefs could still add in free agency this year. We'll get to all of that. Michael Swain of Fog.net will join us for Jayhawk Weekly. Today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. What is wrong with you? All coming up today here on 580 Sports Talk. You're welcome to be a part of the show. You know how, either on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or you can jump in on YouTube. And again, 580 Sports Talk, the name of the YouTube channel. Send to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. If you're watching the stream today, either on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or on our website, you may have noticed we've got another different camera angle today. We have all three of us, myself, Dan, and Spencer, all in studio for the first time. This is the first time Spencer's been on this side of the glass.
That's true.
Yeah,
so
it's taking some little adjustment.
Yeah, it's a much different angle. You're looking in the exact opposite direction normally, because you're usually to my right looking in. Now you're on my left looking out. Trenton's on the other side of the glass. We've moved the camera around. Now we've just got the single shot round table view. This is like the horrible podcast shows they air on ESPNU that are just like three dudes sitting on a couch wearing slippers. They're terrible, by the way. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those. I was at dinner I was at Wings Etc. the other night with a buddy of mine getting dinner, and they had ESPN News on one of the TVs, and it was an NBA podcast.
The Hoop Collective?
No, I don't think it was the Hoop Collective. It was something else. It was called Beyond the Boards or something. I had never seen it before. And it was literally just four dudes sitting on couches. One had his hands in his hoodie pouch the entire show. And I thought, bro, you
so
are on
awkward.
TV. Like you can, people can see you right now. It was amazingly bad. We are actually dressed to be in public today. And
T-shirts and jeans.
I wear a T-shirt and jeans every day. This is what I wear at home to be comfortable. This is what I wear to work. It's what I wear every single day. So let us know if you like the new camera angle. It's how we're going to be doing things for the near future here on the program. First things first today, this just in, tough night for the Kansas City Royals against the Seattle Mariners. They fall in the opener 6-2. Chris Stratton gives up the home run late. It had been 4-2 after Brady Singer departed. Obviously, you don't want to give up a 2-run home run to Ty France late, but by the same token, it would also be nice to have more than 6 hits and 5 singles in a game if you're the Kansas City Royals. I wanted to start with Singer, though. This is the problem with Brady Singer, right? He's got talent, and we have seen stretches from him where he is so good. But then we get these games where you think, God, he's just never going to put it all quite together. Like, I would love 3 months of seeing what we had seen from Brady Singer his last couple of times out. Instead, we kind of zigzag back and forth from, dang, he looks like he's a 2 or a 3 to, man, he's a 4 or a 5, isn't he? 5 innings, 4 runs, 9 hits, struck out 6, which is decent in 5 innings, only walked 1 batter. His velocity was down last night. The spin rate was down. He just didn't have his stuff. And that happens sometimes. But we have been over this, Dan, how many times already this season? if you want Brady Singer to be your number 3 pitcher in your rotation, you've got to get more than this from him against the Mariners team that offensively is not exactly the 27 Yankees. You just need more from him. And last night we didn't get that.
No, he wasn't sharp. I think that is the kindest way to put it. The sinker didn't really appear to be sinking. The slider didn't really have great shape to it until late in his outing. He ended up with 6 strikeouts over 5 innings. And he got some of those. He threw some good sliders late on, like in the 4th or the 5th inning of the outing. But his sinker, which has been his best pitch this year, wasn't real good. And sometimes when you don't have your best, your A pitch isn't its best, or you're having trouble with one of your breaking balls, some pitchers will say, okay, I got to try something else. Therein lies the problem with Brady Singer.
What else are you going to try?
The unwillingness to try something else. Like early on this season, I was going back and looking at his pitch data this year, and they have tried to increase his 4-seam fastball usage. And of course, we've had the conversations for years since it was brought up about, okay, what's he going to do against left-handed hitters? He's got to have a third pitch for lefties. We've talked about the changeup being that pitch for him. He has got to throw the changeup. He came up and he threw the changeup 5% of the time as a rookie. He threw it 4% of the time in 2021. Increased his usage to close to 8% in 2022, best season of his career to date. He was around 6% last year. It's back down to 3% this year. Taking its place in terms of usage has been the 4-seam fastball, which he threw 5 4-seam fastballs in the entire 2023 season. 5. He threw 13 the year before that. He threw 7 apiece in the 2020 and 2021 seasons. This year, he came out of the gate throwing the 4-seam fastball quite a bit. He threw it 30% of the time in his second start of the season. Since then, the usage of that pitch has steadily decreased. Last night, he threw 108 pitches. 7 of them were something other than the slider and the sinker. It was all he was committed to, and neither pitch was sharp, and that's how you get the results that you get. A lot of stuff living in the middle of the plate. The sinker just didn't have real particularly sharp movement. I already talked about the slider. I thought it got better as he went on, but early on, it wasn't a very good pitch. And when hitters can sit on 2 pitches that aren't really doing a whole lot, they're going to do some damage. And they racked up the 9 hits. Rayleigh hit the home run that gave the Mariners the early advantage. And it was really tough for Brady to recover from that. Now, the long-term view of this is like he was really good his last time out. He only threw 9 other pitches compared to he threw 80 sinkers and sliders in that game of his 89 pitches. So it's not, oh man, this is uncharacteristic. But in a game like last night, where the old number 1 and number 2 aren't working, you have to have something else to keep the hitters off of the 1 and the 2. And either he didn't try and he was just being stubborn, which Brady Singer we know has a stubborn streak, or I don't know. I don't know what the alternative to that would be, but there needed to be something else last night to keep the Mariners honest, and there wasn't.
It's often something that comes up in football analysis, whether it's draft or just breaking down NFL tape or whatever. When you're analyzing a player, what sort of answers do they have for problems that opposing defenses or offenses put them in? It's the easiest to do that for quarterbacks, but for a pass rusher, what sort of counters do you have when you're facing an offensive lineman who is good against the speed rush or is good at blocking the bull rush or whatever? What are your answers to that? You can apply the same sort of analytical principle to baseball here. And if you're Brady Singer, the question is, okay, here are your strengths. It's your 2 pitches. It's your big 2. When the offense poses another problem to you, though, and that is either A, they hit those pitches well, or B, you just don't have it in that game, what are the answers that you are able to come up with? And if the answer is, I just keep doing what I'm doing because that's what I'm good at, you're not going to have the success that the Royals need you to have.
And you could tell that the sinker didn't have its typical movement based on the batted ball types you're seeing from Singer last night. He's been one of the best ground ball guys in baseball this year. He's in the 80th percentile when it comes to ground ball percentage, according to Baseball Savant. But there was a lot of fly balls last night. Whole lot of fly balls. Not just a home run to Rayleigh. There was the deep one that, and put a pin in this, the deep one off the bat. I think it was Raleigh who hit the one out to center field that Dairon Blanco made a bit of a mess of.
Yeah.
Like, Kyle Isbell makes that play. Like we're seeing why Dairon Blanco doesn't get the opportunities maybe that his bat is showing maybe he ought to have. But the fly balls off the bat, that tells you that they were squaring up his pitches and that he just didn't have the right amount of movement. Now, look, every pitcher goes through this.
That was just Raleigh's second double of the year. I'm sorry to cut you off, but like,
That
how do you allow that to happen?
I don't think that was a double. I think he stopped at first. There was a lead runner. I don't think that went in the book as a double. I think he doubled earlier in the game.
Oh, okay. All right.
But that fly ball to center was about a 400-foot single because
you're right. I'm sorry. I got confused.
Yeah, you had the two
I had them backwards.
Yeah, you had the two lead runners. Two doubles and like what? You got 10 home runs?
He's got 10 home runs, 2 doubles, and what would that be then? 16 singles? Yeah, that's all he does. He's a 3 true outcomes player. Yeah. How do you give that guy a double at any point?
Yeah, that's why
bad fielding or good fielding.
I missed the double. I can only assume someone fell down. That is the best guess I could give you there. So back to the point about Singer. Like
right.
Every pitcher is entitled. Entitled's not the right word, but you have off days. You do. The problem with Brady Singer is the off days too often are a result of his limitations as a pitcher, which is essentially the limitation is he's only got 2 pitches. Only got 2 pitches that he feels really confident in. And early in the season, that looked like it might be different. And then he's just completely backed off the 4-seamer. It's like, hey, Brady, we know you need a 3rd pitch. We're new. We didn't, work with you when you were on the way up. This is a new philosophy, new pitching coaching staff. Why don't you try some new things? And after 2 starts, Brady Singer has been like, how about if I didn't do that? And look, when the sinker be sinking, he can be very effective. He gets a lot of ground balls. He gets swings and misses with the slider. When it isn't, like last night, this is what you get.
Sinkers be sinking. Before we get to the Royals offense, you want to touch on Sean Barber, because I would imagine if you went and checked the flight data for Alaska Airlines or American or whoever else, I would imagine there were a lot of Royals fans trying to get to Seattle last night to fight Sean Barber. And maybe some M's fans too, frankly, even though they won.
I think it was Trent who pointed out to me on Twitter last night that a big moment in the game was in the first inning, and it stands out as one of his most impactful missed calls of last night, according to the ump scorecards on Twitter. He calls strike 1 to Velasquez with the bases juiced and 2 outs. And strike 1 is not even close. It is way inside and alters the shape of that at bat. He called 93% of taken pitches correctly last night. Seems high. According to the umpire metrics, he was worth, Sean Barber's umpiring last night was worth 3/4 of a run for the Mariners. Which, again, see if you feel a little hard done by as a Royals fan by the umpiring last night. Melendez this was the one that really made me roll my eyes, was when they rung up Melendez. Now he's down in the count 0-2, but they ring up Melendez on an 0-2 pitch that is well off the plate. And look, you touched on George Kirby. He's one of the best pitchers in the American League. Outstanding command. Like he just does not walk guys.
That's his thing.
I have not seen a catcher set up as far outside as Cal Raleigh does on certain pitches that Kirby is throwing. Like he's set up almost as far outside as you can legally set up on a slider. I forget it was 2. It was a right-handed hitter early in the game because he knows Kirby can hit that spot. Like that's faith in a guy's command. That's faith in a guy's ability to hit a spot. That being said, Kirby was also begging. Kirby does a little too much begging for my liking. Here is one pitch. He was a good width of the ball off the plate away, and he started walking off the mound like it was strike 3 to win the inning. I'm like, get back up on the mound. Come on. You're begging. That rubbed me the wrong way. But given Sean Barber's performance last night, I could see why he thought he was going to get the call. So, the home plate umpire last night, not good. If you thought that he was not good in a way that tilted a little bit towards Seattle, the numbers bear that out.
And it seems like it's just a couple key things. Like from what I saw on Twitter, to look at the accuracy, I would have thought it would have been like low 80s.
In terms of number of correct calls.
Yeah, it just seems like the two were at huge time. Like two of the couple were at huge times. Like
like I said, yes.
They were, the misses were impactful more than if it was numbers wise. Like I thought it was more than just a couple. It just happened to be in big moments that it was wrong.
It would probably sting a little bit more if you have this information, this data, however accurate it is, to say, oh man, the Royals got cheated out of a run if you hadn't lost by 4. Like if it had been 3-2, probably would feel worse. But when Singer goes out there and does not have his stuff, and you give up the insurance home run late, obviously that stings a little bit less. Offense, just not a great day. You had 1 extra base hit out of your 6 hits. George Kirby's really good. You got another test tonight, Logan Gilbert, whose command isn't quite as good as George Kirby's. I think he's got really good stuff, though. I think he's a really good pitcher. He's got good velocity. That's going to be another tough one tonight. We'll break that down a little bit later on in the show. One thing that I do think is worth noting, and this really follows a trend we've talked about on the show a lot lately, David Lesky this morning over at Inside the Crown, and this is behind the paywall, but I think there's enough tease here on the free side that it's worth getting to. He says that I want to caution everyone on looking at what guys in AAA are doing and how big the gap is between that level and the big leagues right now. There was a great article in The Athletic about it last week. I think for guys who have been in the big leagues before, it's an easier transition, but I wouldn't just assume that because a player is dominating in AAA that he'll come up and the numbers will be like 15% worse, but still good enough. We've talked about this before, how in AAA, they're just mashing over the last couple of years. Yes, it's better than what the Royals have, but I don't think anyone would anticipate that what the Royals have would have been this bad. Still, here's the key. I do think there are changes coming in the next week to 10 days on the offensive side that will at least shake things up. So Dave saying probably going to get a call up from AAA, maybe a couple of call ups from AAA. Here's the obvious one. This has to mean it's Drew Waters' turn to get a shot, right? I don't know how. I don't know where else you would go first. He has had a really good year at AAA so far. We know he's got a good glove. He's good in the field. You got to give him a shot.
Yeah, I think that's probably where you go. Him up and Velasquez down is probably the move that makes the most sense as far as roster flexibility goes, as far as trying to address what has been a deficiency. We talked about it yesterday. The numbers that the Royals have gotten out of the corner outfield spots have just not been acceptable. And they've got to get more production out of what are traditionally offensive spots, power spots in the lineup. Now, Drew Waters has a big league track record that isn't terribly inspiring. He's also just 25 years old. Mm-hmm. Some players bloom a little later than others, and I would like to see him get that opportunity. Plus, he switch hits, so you don't necessarily have to platoon him. You can play him whenever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to give it a try. Again, your other options have not been especially great so far this year. We know how bad Renfroe's been. We know that Velasquez has really had problems there. Dairon Blanco got a hit again last night, went 1 for 3, stole a base, also got caught stealing once. I'm fine continuing that experiment, but it's probably time for Drew Waters to get a little bit of run here. I'm excited for tonight's game. I would like to see the Royals and again, they're different kinds of pitchers, but I'm excited to see the Royals try to bounce back. They have done a good job so far this year of not letting things linger and not spiraling. We talked about that yesterday. They've only had the 2-3 game losing skids this year. The fact that they have been able to avoid that downward spiral where everything just sort of falls apart and they can't get out of their own way. These are 2 really good pitchers in a row that they are facing, and I hope we get to see a little more of that tonight.
Yeah, they rattled the cage of Kirby a little bit early, but you have to get a pitcher of that caliber when you have him on the ropes, and they had him on the ropes in the first inning, and they could not deliver a blow to take an early lead, and that in the end proved to be costly because you give a good pitcher a chance to settle in. That's exactly what they're going to do. I want to see Waka build on his last start. He was really good in Anaheim. Fastball velocity was really good, was working up in the zone with it. Typically has a really good changeup, really good off-speed stuff, but the fastball really played nicely for Waka his last time out. I want to see him build on that because he might have to go toe to toe for 6 innings, 7 innings. That's one other thing too. I want to double back to Singer real quick. We'll do the what is it? The criticism, compliment criticism, the sandwich, whatever it is. Credit him for going 5. last night. That was no guarantee. He was up in the 70s in his pitch count in the third inning. And for him to be able to get through 5 means you didn't totally tax the bullpen to start this series. And you should still have your back end guys, your best guys, fresh for the final 2 games of the series. And Singer deserves credit for that.
And it seems like too, maybe the top of the lineup a little bit is cooling, specifically Bobby Witt and Salvador Perez. Hopefully they can, have maybe multi-hit games tonight to get them back in the swing. Cause it seems like Bobby Witt has a good game and then he goes like 1 for 8 over 2 games.
1 for 4 last night, had the tough series against Los Angeles. Again, he's the guy you probably worry about the least right now just because of everything else he brings to the table. But yeah, it'd be good to see him cut. You want to see guys like that ignite bounce backs. You want to see them be the catalyst for
the
positive
reason
things.
That you can come back after a tough loss the night prior.
On the other side of this break, we'll get to the first quarter of the year grades from RJ Anderson of CBS Sports, MLB writer, friend of the program, what he had to say about the Royals and some other teams in the AL Central. We'll also get to some major college basketball news later on in the hour. There's no way it works out for the school that just hired Doug Gottlieb. That's coming up in this opening hour of 580 Sports Talk. .30 on this Tuesday afternoon. Brendan, Dan, and Spencer with you. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. RJ Anderson from CBS Sports MLB coverage. We've had RJ on the show plenty of times. Should get him on sometime this summer. But nonetheless, he posted his MLB first quarter grades earlier today. And he Jade, what we were doing with ESPN's David Schoenfield a couple of weeks ago, where he had for the first month his grades for the year. They went all up and down the Major League Baseball standings and gave out their letter grades. And the Kansas City Royals, unsurprisingly, came away with an A. But tell me if I'm off base here in saying that his write-up is a little pessimistic about the Royals long term. The secret to the Royals' early season success has been their play against bad teams. They're 18-6 when faced with a losing club, and that performance has them on pace for 96 wins overall. Kansas City was hyperactive over the offseason, but we must admit that even with the upgrades, we felt they'd fall somewhere around 500. Will they maintain this level heading forward? We're skeptical. The lineup is shallow, and we expect some regression from Seth Lugo, Brady Singer, and Alec Marsh. Still, the Royals are well positioned to enjoy their first winning season since 2015. That's a nice little kicker at the end there, but the rest saying, well, they've played well against pig slop, and we think that 3 starters are all going to get worse, is not necessarily the most optimistic outlook I've heard for a team.
Well, first of all, playing well against pig slop is, again, I want to stress, actually good.
Very good.
That's what you're supposed to do. That's what all good teams do, is walk all over the pig slop, is keep the struggling team struggling. Like that is the hallmark of every team that is actually good. So to say that that's a demerit against the Royals' early season success, to me, that doesn't wash. Like if you want to point to that and say, hey, this is part of the reason why things have gone the way they've gone. Well, yeah, they have benefited from getting to see the White Sox 7 times already. They have benefited from playing against a miserable Angels team, having that be one of their road series so far, or playing against the Astros while the Astros were really down horrendous. Yeah, you want to say that helps? That helps. But it's also doing what you're supposed to do, and doing it at a high level. Like, imagine if they were 15-9 and against a losing club, their record wouldn't look as shiny today. Like they are playing well against losing teams. That's not, to me, a knock.
You play who's on your schedule.
Yes. Everybody gets to play those teams eventually. And literally everyone gets to play the Chicago White Sox. And everybody in the Central gets to play them 13 times. Unfortunately for the White Sox, they do not get to inter-squad scrimmage 13 times in games that might count the standings. That might help them pick up a few wins here or there. But everybody gets to play those teams. Everybody gets their crack at the Astros. Everybody gets their crack at the Angels. Everybody's going to, interleague play is going to come around, and they're going to get to play the Marlins, and they're going to play the Rockies, and they're going to play the crummy teams over in the National League too. It happens for everybody. So it's not a knock. Like I don't like using records against losing teams as a knock, unless you're lousy against losing teams, and that would suggest you're probably a pretty lousy team yourself. The other part, though, at the end about a shallow lineup and regression probably coming for some of their starting pitchers, I think that's entirely fair and of a part, of a piece of what we've been saying here, that the Royals need more from 5 through 9 in their lineup. Like, it is really jarring when you watch like the first inning of a game and Garcia or Witt gets on and Perez gets on. Then they get to the 5 hole and it's like, it's already time for Nelson Velasquez. It's already Hunter Renfroe up with 2 on and 2 out in the first inning. You got a crooked number chance, but this guy's hitting $150. So I don't know how good I feel about this. So we've all acknowledged that. And there has been, to a degree, an acknowledgement that Seth Lugo's not going to have an ERA in the mid-1s all season. Brady Singer's peripherals suggest a step back. The advanced metrics, like the batted ball stuff, really doesn't like him. As I was looking at Baseball Savant earlier today, like even though he's striking out a batter per inning, he's got a very respectable walks plus hits divided by innings pitched, or whip. Like, he's doing well to limit base runners, but he is giving up like the kind of contact that you would think would result in more damage being done. Helped by pitching in a pitcher's park, though. So maybe it balances a little bit.
Yeah.
The Royals aren't the only team from the Central who got an A, but not an especially glowing blurb from RJ Anderson. So following giving their Ohio state mates, the Reds, a D, he writes this about the Cleveland Guardians, who are in first place in the Central. You would not really feel that way based on how he writes about them, though. Elsewhere in Ohio, the Guardians are the most surprising first place team in the majors in more ways than one. You look at their roster, and it sure feels like they've been more than the sum of their parts to an unsustainable extent. To wit, of their 12 position players with 80 or more plate appearances, they have more with an OPS plus below 80 than they do above 110. So a lot more well below average players than above average offensive players. The rotation offers a similarly befuddling situation. Of their 5 starters, 3 have an ERA plus below 80. That's like OPS plus, but for ERA instead. They're without Shane Bieber for the year and Stephen Kwan and Gavin Williams for the time being. How is this team in first place? Part of it is an outstanding and likely fleeting 6-2 record in extra inning contests. Most other teams haven't played 6 total, let alone have 6 wins. We're not trying to rain on Cleveland's parade. Ultimately, they are in first place, and that's what matters most. But we'd be lying if we wrote that we expected them to remain here. I disagree, RJ. I absolutely think you're trying to rain on Cleveland's parade here, which I'm not complaining about.
Well, we've mentioned that already, that their best or second best offensive player, Stephen Kwan, is on the shelf, and their best pitcher, Shane Bieber, is going to miss the rest of the season, and their depth is going to be stress tested over the course of 162 games. Everybody's is, but theirs already is, and we'll see how this goes. They dropped a couple to the White Sox over the weekend, as Christopher points out in the YouTube live chat. But the other point there, too, about extra inning games, 6-2 in extra inning games. Extra innings can really be a crapshoot, especially with the Manfred man on base now. But close game luck tends to even out. We've had this discussion. Close game, 1-run game luck tends to even out over the course of 162. Sometimes it doesn't. You know who went 33-14 in 1-run games last year? The Miami Marlins.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they went 84-78 and were in the postseason last year, because they were crazy good in 1-run games. And 7-3 in extra inning games, as it happened. They are 11-32 this year. And I know that they are not exactly the same team, and they've already traded their best offensive player, but still, like, that just goes to show you how much good luck in 1-run games can kind of buoy a team that maybe is just getting a couple of bounces in those close games that you wouldn't expect. What you really want to look at is a fairer measure of what a team is how do they play in those blowout games? Mm-hmm. Last year's Marlins were 17-24 in games decided by 5 or more runs. So I'm trying to figure out what Cleveland is. I'm pulling up their schedule right now, what they are in games like that, because they are, as we mentioned, 6-2 in the extra inning games. They're 8-4 in the blowout games, but they're 6-6 in 1-run games. So maybe their luck is actually a fairer representation, at least to this point, of what they are.
The number one example of a team that their record was way better than they actually were because of an unsustainable record in close games. 2016 Texas Rangers. Remember the 2016 Rangers?
Oh, they were preposterous in 1-run games.
They finished the year 95-67. Their Pythag win-loss, which, in case you've heard us reference that, but you don't know what it is, it's essentially based on how many runs you score and how many runs you allow. What is your record expected to be? 82-80. That's not a playoff team. They won their division with 95 wins. They won an unbelievable number of 1-run games that season. I don't know how easy it is to access that. 36-11. They were 25 games over 500 in 1-run games. You know what happened to them in the playoffs? Swept in the first round. Lost the division series 3-0 to Toronto that year.
Yep.
Got swept. That's the team that is always number one in my mind of this is unsustainable.
There are 11 teams in history that have ever made the postseason with a negative run differential over the course of the season. Nobody has had a greater difference between their runs allowed and their runs scored and still made the playoffs regardless than the 2023 Marlins. They were minus 57 in that department. By the way, fun fact for the Royals fans, the first 2 Major League Baseball teams to reach the playoffs despite a negative run differential were the 1981 Royals. That was a strike year, so it was kind of weird anyway. You had the first half champs and the second half champs make the playoffs in each division. It was a weird year, but they were minus 8. And the 1984 Royals, who were minus 13 in run differential and won the AL West anyway with 84-78 record and got drummed by the Tigers in the playoffs.
I just did some math. The Royals have a series. I mean, do you count 2-game series as series? I guess you do.
Yeah.
I think there's 34 436 series left in the season, and 23 of them, as of this moment, are against teams that are 500 or better.
That's why, as we have talked about, and you were talking about it just yesterday on the show, I think, winning against these bad teams is not only important because you want to beat teams you should beat, but if you're talking about being a playoff contender when you've got to play tougher teams and are going to lose likely more often in those games, you want to make sure you have as many banked as possible. We'll talk some more Royals coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today as we get ready for tonight's second game, after losing the opener against the Seattle Mariners. But on the other side of this break, Doug Gottlieb, who has never coached before, is finally getting a D1 coaching job after whining and begging and brown-nosing for years. And guess what? It's not going to work. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. All right, we had a question from YouTube from Clayton who asks what hats everyone's wearing today. We've got a good assortment. I don't know what Spencer's wearing because this is on backwards. It is, what does that say?
Mountaineer Media. It's a podcast from West Virginia.
Okay, that makes sense given where you're from. Dan's wearing a Wind Surge hat. That's the alternate logo.
Yeah, the Wichita Wind Surge alternate look here.
And a good guess. He guessed that mine was a 90s throwback hat. It is. This is a logo brand. I miss Logo Athletic.
Logo Athletic.
Yeah,
Hell yeah,
bring
man.
that back. Georgia Tech. Go Bees. I bought this hat when Coach Paul Johnson was still in town, and they were running the triple like God intended us to run.
R.I.P. to the triple.
Yeah, God. And Brett Key is a
Real
good coach,
ball.
but replacing that with Jeff Collins was an affront to God himself. Absolutely despicable. Speaking of despicable and coaches at the Division I level, what a perfect segue to Doug Gottlieb. It was reported first by John Rothstein this morning that he had emerged as a serious candidate for the open job at Wisconsin Green Bay, which was left open by former MIAA coach. He was at Missouri Western, Sundance Wicks, who was the coach of the year in the Horizon League and now has a 5-year contract, and he is on his way to Wyoming. He was an assistant coach at Wyoming previously. Sundance is a great name for living in Laramie, Wyoming, by the way.
I still cannot believe the guy who I used to see wearing pink pinstripe suits on the sideline at Missouri Western is going to now coach in the Mountain West.
Coaching in the Mountain West.
He looked like White Pitbull.
Oh, man, we're going to hear J.D. Kapner call his games this coming season. Anyway, that's a complaint for another day.
How about we have ourselves an even up game?
So his replacement is Doug Gottlieb, who has been crying and whining and begging in the most embarrassing way possible for years to get a Division I coaching job, mostly at his alma mater, Oklahoma State. He did not get that gig, which
wow, can't believe it.
I would have loved for him to have gotten that job, honestly, because it would have meant one team that I never have to worry about. I would have never had to worry about Oklahoma State being good while he was there. So he's going to Wisconsin Green Bay. Here's the part of this that really should piss you off if you are a coach or you care about coaching at any level of college and frankly high school coaching too. Doug Gottlieb is not only going to get a Division I job without ever having coached a day in his life, he's keeping his national radio show. He is going to be on Fox Sports Radio for 2 hours every single day while being the head coach of a Division I program.
Are they going to make a studio in his office?
I would guess, probably. Or he's going to get a new home studio up in Green Bay. I would not be surprised at all if he does not relocate full-time for this. This is going to be a nightmare and a disaster at every single turn. You cannot be a part-time D1 coach. You cannot do it.
I'm offended by the thought that you can be in this world, in this sports talk game, and still have the energy to go and coach Division I basketball and recruit. You don't understand the take life. If you think this is something that you're going to be able to do, that you're going to be able to say, I have got to really craft my ideas about what the Knicks need to do this offseason and who the biggest threat is to the Chiefs in the AFC and some college football NIL takes. And I got to go run a 2-hour practice today. I got to go install the motion offense. You don't have the chest for that, Doug.
And look, he's a true trailblazer guy. No, I'm kidding.
And you got to go recruit. Unless you're planning to go full Coach Prime, who at least has charisma.
Yeah.
Coach Prime, I dislike I dislike the way he has treated people. I think Doug Gottlieb's a loser. And I'm not afraid to say that. We also don't carry Fox Sports Radio, so I'm not worried about someone getting mad at me for saying that. I think Doug Gottlieb is a tool. I do not think he will be a good coach. Who wants to play for him? At least Dion, he's got prime. He's got sort of this aura about him, which
he's one of the greatest athletes in American history. He's one of the only guys to do 2 sports and do it reasonably well. He is a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Doug Gottlieb got kicked out of Notre Dame for stealing his roommate's credit cards and then set the assist record at Oklahoma State. And then we didn't hear nothing about his athletic career. If that's what he's trying to sell, Deion Sanders can sell the association with greatness. That is the prime brand is I'm great. I am an all-time great. I am certified. Everybody recognizes how great I am. And if you are around me, you are surrounded by my aura of greatness. How is Doug Gottlieb going to sell that? And I know that basketball at Green Bay is a little different than Power 4 conference football in terms of the kind of guy you're trying to recruit. But I just can't see the recruiting pitch of come play with a part-time sports talk show host. I don't see it working. It's not like JJ Redick, right? It would be different if it was somebody who had a playing career worth standing next to and bragging about.
JJ Redick played 15 years in the NBA. Exactly.
That's where I was going to go with this. You talk about Deion. Deion did it at the highest level possible, multiple years on multiple sports. And Doug Gottlieb barely finished college ball.
Doug Gottlieb is more famous today for complaining about woke millennials than he is for anything related to the sport of basketball. They won't even put him on Westwood One broadcasts of games for the NCAA tournament. His role is sitting in the studio and offering mind-numbing takes. That's it. That's all he does. His radio show stinks. This is so stupid. And I think the only reason I'm fired up about this is, like, I feel for coaches that I have interacted with. Like, there are high school coaches in the state of Kansas who right now would do a better job at the University of Wisconsin Green Bay than Doug Gottlieb will. There are coaches in the MIAA. There was just a former MIAA coach who did a good job at Wisconsin Green Bay and would have done a better job than Doug Gottlieb will. This is so insulting to so many people.
I don't understand what Green Bay gets out of this. I guess that there was a little buzz with Sundance Wicks in the sense that, like, The Athletic wrote him up. Like, there was a nice article in The Athletic about Sundance Wicks, who, like, I sartorially, putting the sartorial taste aside, does seem to be a motivator and somebody who gets people excited to play for him, and did have Green Bay playing good basketball last year. I think they made one of the postseason tournaments, might have been the CBI, but they played postseason basketball last year after that program had been left for dead for a while. I do not see why Green Bay would have learned the lesson of, okay, here's a guy that's paid dues. Here's a guy that was a Division I assistant, then got a Division II head coaching job, then got our head coaching job, worked his way up, learned the craft, learned how to coach, learned how to recruit, helped us get better right away, get to a point where we were proud of our basketball program again, and then just flush that lesson down the toilet and go hire a sports talk show host. Go hire
it's embarrassing.
Go hire a hot taker. Like, it doesn't make a lick of sense. And I know that Doug Gottlieb appears to be himself serious about wanting to coach, but if he were really serious about this job in particular, he'd quit the damn talk show.
Yep. You have to be able to give.
He would have 100% quit the talk show if this had been the Oklahoma State gig.
Yeah, of course he would.
1,000%. If Oklahoma State had done what he was begging them to do, he would have crawled on broken glass to coach in Stillwater. He does love his alma mater. I think that is authentic. And he would absolutely have crawled on broken glass for that coaching job. And if they'd given it to him, he would have told Fox Sports or CBS Sports, whoever he's working with, he'd have said, deuces, guys. I'm going to go be a Power 4, Power 5 head basketball coach. I'm going to go do this the right way. But Green Bay doesn't get that respect from him. That's embarrassing for everybody involved. It really is.
And this basically limits his sports talk radio, like things he can advertise with. Sports betting he can't, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I don't know how good it would sound if he's doing live reads for DraftKings.
Yeah. Like that's like half of the future of like what he does is gambling, sports gambling, and he probably can't talk about that on his radio show anymore.
It really bothers me as someone who, like, I work hard. I expect people around me, and y'all do, like, to work as hard as I do to be good at what we are collectively doing. I'm someone who wants other people to work as hard as I do. It really bothers me to then see someone get a high-profile opportunity who is openly not going to do the maximum effort. Like, how does that not infuriate you no matter what you do? That's what bothers me about this. He is not going to be good at this. What makes you believe this is going to work other than he's on the radio?
He's got this national platform. We've seen him on TV before. It's like, yeah, but he's still like Doug Gottlieb.
Like, I would love to
this
go.
Isn't even like hiring Tim Legler, right? Yeah. Like somebody with
who has chops.
Yeah, like hiring Kendrick Perkins. Like, okay, yeah, he's on TV a lot.
Yeah, like it bothers me. I would love to go and like help out with a high school team in town, or go be an official. I've absolutely thought about, like, I'd love to go officiate games. I could not do that full bore and do this. Like that's not possible to do.
One last note on Gottlieb's playing career. He finished his career with 5.1 points per game, but did average 7.6 assists and also had 179 career steals. Though if you add in the credit cards, that goes up to 181.
Imagine that guy coming into your living room and saying, I want your kid to come play for me. I would have so many questions. He would leave crying. This is not going to work. I will tell you right now, everyone knows it is going to be a failure, and it is going to be a failure. I am willing to stake a very firm take on that. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour of the show, we'll get to some Chiefs football, the latest on the schedule leaks, what we know about the schedule. Plus, we've got Random Question Tuesday. We're going to learn a little bit about Trenton Kraxner during next hour as well. Coming up on 580 Sports Talk. MVS tweeted, "Good things happen to good people. Earned, not given. Prayers and no shortcuts. Thankful for the journey." I have some disagreements with a few of those things he said, but good for him that he gets to play with Josh Allen. This is hilarious for the Bills, by the way. This is major Vikings taking the Packers sloppy seconds energy right here. I guess this is the one compliment I can give. They essentially replaced Gabe Davis for cheaper. That's pretty much what they did
Gabe
here.
Davis is better than MVS.
Yeah, probably. How much better? Would you
I'd much rather have Gabe Davis.
at the contract he got from the Jags?
No.
Yeah.
I think there's the difference there.
Yep.
At that point, honestly, here's your selling point for MVS. One, he's cheaper. Two, you know what you are getting. You are getting a deep threat who blocks, who doesn't really catch the ball very well, but will probably show up in the playoffs.
Big moments.
Gabe Davis, yeah, he's the big moment guy. Gabe Davis.
Is he the big moment guy, or is he the big moment against the Chiefs guy?
No, MVS is the big moment
MVS
guy.
is the big moment
Yeah,
guy.
he's the big moment guy in the playoffs, not in the regular season.
Gabe Davis is just caking off that 4-touchdown game against the Chiefs in the divisional round for the rest of his life. He's going to eat off of that.
Yes. No, that is absolutely true.
He's going to walk onto like Hollywood Squares. Did somebody say 4 touchdowns? He's like Al Bundy.
Gabe Davis in that one playoff game had, I got to do the math here real quick, 15% of his regular season touchdowns. He has 27 touchdowns in his career. He had 4 in that one game against the Chiefs. That's now 2 years or 3 whole seasons ago. We've had 2 years since then. And he's just been whatever ever since. He's never had more than 48 catches in a year. What is MVS's career high?
For receptions?
Receptions. Is
Probably
it more than
his
48?
Probably his last year in Green Bay, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I don't think he ever had more catches than he did that last year in Green Bay.
No, that is actually incorrect.
Oh.
That last year in Green Bay he only had 26. He's had multiple years more than that. His career high was in 22 with the Chiefs. He had 42 catches.
Wow.
He had more yards his second to last year in Green Bay. He had 690 that year.
Might have been what I was thinking of.
Yeah, it's hey, look, if you get to play with those 3 dudes as your quarterbacks in your career, you're doing something right, even though you might not be a superstar player.
Nobody's said anything negative about MVS as a teammate. Like the way he conducted himself through everything. Like I think that, we don't know these guys. We're not in the locker room every day with these guys. Like McCole Hardman appears to be fairly beloved among his Chiefs teammates.
And the zebras at the zoo. One day that'll stop being funny, but it's not today.
MVS, another guy that appears to have a lot of respect in the locker room. I'm judging that based upon the fact that Patrick Mahomes kept throwing him the football, even after he kept dropping it.
Is that respect or Stockholm syndrome?
Lack of options.
Yeah. Someone has to get this football.
Yeah.
It is not going to end in my hand. It is going to someone else. It might as well be MVS.
I'm going to throw this one too good for even this jabroni to drop.
One other personnel note from around the league from a Chiefs rival, if you will, in the AFC contending window right now. Trey Hendrickson is working out with the Bengals this summer. He is at Bengals workouts. He's not going anywhere. He is not going to get traded. And neither is T. Higgins. And that is exactly why they have 1 year. They have 1 and the 49ers have 2.
Yeah.
Both because those teams are going to have to pay the piper at some point. And the Bengals are not. They're not going to pay the piper. They're not going to pay anyone.
That's why they only have 1 year left.
Yeah, they paid one dude, and they said that's enough.
They want to be very good for as little money as it is possible for them to spend.
I would not be shocked if they also pay Jamar Chase. The problem with that, though, is they will not pay anyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of, well, they can still fit a couple. No, that's not what they do. That's not what the Brown family does. And that's going to be their big issue. The 49ers have a great roster. All of them have to get paid at some point. And Trent Williams is also almost 40. And there aren't a whole lot of great Hall of Fame left tackles at 40.
And there aren't a lot of starting caliber quarterbacks in the 7th round of the NFL draft either. So, you think Lightning going to strike again on Brock Purdy? Because they're not paying him. I mean, you are not.
I'm still not convinced of that, man. I think they might. I think they might try to split the baby and try to pay him a not market-setting contract.
Yeah.
But if he goes to 3 NFC championship games, somebody's going to give him that contract.
Yeah, maybe that's the better way to phrase it. Somebody is going to pay him. Somebody will give him a big deal.
He's going to get a number. I just hope it happens while I'm live on the air.
He'll get more in 2 years than Jared Goff got yesterday.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the other thing. We were talking about the Jared Goff contract yesterday, and the other point to make about a contract like that, where it stands out, like, oh my God, that is so much money for a quarterback of Jared Goff's caliber, and we all agree, like, he's not a difference-making quarterback. He is a good starting quarterback.
Yes.
You are happier with him than you are with a replacement level or worse quarterback, but he's also not a guy that inspires fear in a way that the very best quarterbacks do. Yet he is now the second highest paid quarterback in the league, and that will last until the next guy gets his money, and then the next guy gets his money. And by the time Brock Purdy gets $68 million a year from somebody, Jared Goff's going to look underpaid.
Probably.
Yeah.
They did guarantee him a lot of that money, $170 million guaranteed. Schedule notes that have come out since we were last on the air with you yesterday. We know who the Chiefs will play in week 2. They get the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't like this. I do not like this. I don't like having the Ravens and the Bengals back-to-back weeks to open the season.
No.
Less so because that's a difficult run for the Chiefs to start the year, and they might not have Rashee Rice for it. More so, I want those good games later in the season.
Right.
I want those
Exactly.
high-profile games in November and December.
Exactly. I would have rather had a divisional game that week.
Yeah, play the Chargers. You always play the Chargers week 2. Play them there. Play
They do always play in week 2.
right. Play the Raiders there. Play the Buccaneers there. Who cares? I would want this game later in the season.
I think this is the first time, I think I read the first time the Chiefs will open back-to-back at home in a very long time. Like maybe
Certainly not in the Mahomes era.
maybe more than 20 years. First time that they've opened with back-to-back at home.
Wow.
And yeah, like I get it from the perspective of, man, that's 2 very good teams that the Chiefs are going to play right away.
Mhm.
Oh no, they might not start 2-0. Oh dear. Like they'll be fine. They could start 0-2 and they would be fine because they have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like
They went 1-2 a couple of seasons ago.
yeah, they did. They were very close to tricking off the division in December last year, and they were fine. Like at this point, this is a phrase I've used a lot on the radio program throughout the playoff roundup, and I think it really applies to the Chiefs. The championship equity that the Chiefs have is astronomical. They've got like a AAA credit ranking when it comes to championship equity. You should just assume that they're going to be there at the end until they're not. And if they're not, it's not because of a personality defect. It's because somebody outplayed them.
Yeah.
Because that's what you have to do to beat the champs. So I would not be fussed about this. Like from a scheduling standpoint, would I have liked to spread out some marquee non-division games or outside the division games? Yeah, absolutely. But you get them both at home. Unfortunately, for those clamoring for more noon kickoffs, that is, of course, going to be a 3:25 Central Time kickoff on CBS week 2.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're stunned.
With Jim Nance and Tony Romo.
Jim Nance and Tony Romo already have booked their rooms at.
Yeah.
Where do you think they stay?
Intercontinental on the Plaza.
Yeah. It had to be the Crown Plaza.
Yeah, that's what I would guess. It's a nice hotel, nice spot. And it's not all that far
You
away.
mean they don't book the Drury Inn, cat corner from the
Next to the FCA building? No. And is that Denny's still there? No, I think the Denny's is gone.
I think the Denny's is gone.
Man. Taco Bell is still there.
There, if those Denny's walls could talk.
I bet they have a lot of George Brett stories. Stories that don't smell very good either.
Hippolito Pichardo dismantling a grand slam at 1 a.m. after a Royals midweek night game in the 90s.
So the games that we know of already for certain. We know week 1 features Ravens at Chiefs in the opener. We have a Friday night game that week.
In Brazil.
In Brazil, yes. Packers-Eagles. I'm excited about that game. The Eagles are favored in that game. I wouldn't do that if I was Vegas, but that's neither here nor there. Cowboys-Browns, that is America's game of the week on Fox. That's the afternoon game, week 1 on Sunday. I've said this before. CBS needs to get some branding for their game. They just have, game 2 of the CBS doubleheader. Nah, man, Fox is running America's game of the week. You've got to go with like the universe's #1 football game at 3:25 on Sunday.
And that's the only game at that time.
Yeah, a solo win. exclusive window game. The whole country is going to get to pick apart Tom Brady right away
I hate those solo games, honestly.
because you don't have an option to watch something else if it's not a
Yeah.
good game.
You always have an option to watch something else. It'll still be golf season. I'm sure there'll be.
I mean, yes.
But football.
Sure there'll be some FedEx Cup.
All right. All right, LeBron. I don't know. I got golf to watch. Oh, get out of my
I got
face.
multiple TVs, man.
I can't wait to have multiple TVs.
I get to choose where I turn the sound on.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd rather hear Dan Hicks calling some FedEx Cup.
I used to watch games with all the volume on all at the same time.
I can never do that.
No, my
Too much
wife
going
put the
on.
kibosh on that. She said, no,
There-
you can have the TVs on. You can have sound on one of them. You cannot have sound on all of them.
Just too much going on.
I
Oh,
like the
man.
stimulation.
The Tour Championships the weekend before. Never mind. Damn. No golf? What am I going to do?
You're going to watch Cowboys
I'm
Browns.
going to watch Cowboys Browns. I was going to do that anyway. Let's be real honest.
Tom Brady making his debut in the booth at the Factory of Sadness is actually really funny, though. There is something quite funny about that.
I don't know what kind of broadcaster Tom Brady is going to be. I've never thought him to be particularly charismatic. I don't think he's got like year one Tony Romo in him where he's just like A, super enthusiastic, and B, literally Nostradamus.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is a run play. Check it out. Like, I don't think that's what
Jim,
he's
right
going.
here.
Don't think that's what he's going to be. But I am a little curious. Like, what is he going to be as a broadcaster? Is he going to be like, yeah, these quarterbacks are bums? Like, that's what Troy Aikman was for a long time. He would watch a game and be like, yeah, well, and still is.
That's what
frankly.
he is, I think, even more now than he once was. He's not afraid to say,
like,
this sucks.
yeah,
this is
there's
bad.
This guy couldn't hold my jock.
If there's a roughing the passer penalty that is a little favorable to the quarterback, he's gonna be like, back in my day, they didn't give me that at the start of my career.
He is kind of crotchety now. The
Did he
pacing
say
comes-
something? I
Yeah.
think he said something on a podcast in the last 6 months or 7 months about like these quarterbacks have it easier than it was when I got in the league.
Which, brother, that is so lacking self-awareness. I cannot even put it to words. I don't get it with Brady. I get it. Like, he's Tom Brady. That's why you put him in the booth. I think Brady would be fine. We've talked about, I think you and I talked about this before at the very least. I think Tom Brady would be fine if you put him in the studio. Like, if you told Terry Bradshaw to go into a home and you put Tom Brady in his seat on Fox.
Just like CBS is doing with JJ Watt.
Yeah, I think he would probably be pretty good because that's an opportunity to expand on things more, to have conversation, to bounce ideas off
Make
a
a
guy.
segment on the pregame show where he's up at the teleprompter.
Yeah, like
stuff
that.
like that.
I think he could be fine at that. I have a hard time seeing him and Kevin Burkhardt being great right away. And I like Kevin Burkhardt a lot. I think he does a really good job.
I think our guy Lenny Dawson has an opinion that is probably shared by many listeners in the YouTube live chat, saying listening to Brady would be like watching paint dry. Like, I've never gotten.
He's not engaging.
Like, I've never gotten the like, oh, this is a charismatic person vibes.
Like,
Yeah.
Olsen, I'm sorry to cut you off, man. Greg Olsen like has the energy to kind of suck you in.
Mm-hmm. And
What Tom Brady doesn't.
Greg also got some charisma. What's Tom Brady done this anywhere as funny as third leg Greg?
Nothing. Nowhere. Third leg Greg. Good lord. Well, and also Olsen
If you know, you
spent-
know. Shout out,
Yep.
shout out to the 7th floor crew.
Go watch the U part 2. You'll know. Like, Olsen also for 2 years, maybe 3, was doing games during his off week. Fox brought him into the booth when the Panthers or Seahawks were off and had him call a game. And he spent a year on one of the I think he worked with Dick Stockton for a year.
I feel bad for him.
I feel awful for Olsen. He's going to replace Collinsworth. That's my take. He's going to
got
replace Collinsworth.
another season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Collinsworth's probably going to go for a while. Maybe they'll reunite him with Al on Prime and have the two of them get back together.
Kirk will just get too tired of it.
If
That might
Herbie
be-
is just sick of the travel, yeah.
I'd be all for that.
Have you seen that every week in the fall?
Mhm.
They post what his playing schedule is like.
Dude, it is
Insane.
crazy. Like,
And then he found a way to go see his son play on Friday nights.
yeah, it was get there
Meetings.
Wednesday, do the game Thursday, fly back to Cincinnati or
No, I think
Nashville Friday.
He would fly to have Friday morning meetings for game day. and then he would fly in the evening up to Cincinnati or wherever they were playing.
That is absurd. That is absolutely absurd. The other schedule notes we know of, by the way, the opening Monday night of the season, Jets 49ers. So the Jets are back on Monday Night Football, the site of their great shame this past year when 4 snaps into the season, Leonard Floyd sacked Aaron Rodgers and he tore his Achilles. By the way, just a fun note, do you know who the 49ers signed at outside linebacker this offseason?
Would it be Leonard Floyd?
It is Leonard Floyd.
Aaron, I saw somebody tweet that Aaron Rodgers' right Achilles has the chance to do the funniest thing ever.
I saw that too.
Yeah. And look, I am not rooting for Aaron Rodgers to get hurt, but you are setting yourself, like, do you guys know that you're dealing with the New York Jets here? Do you know the history of the New York Jets and what kind of karma you are taunting right now by putting this game in prime time?
I don't know how much weight to put on the reporting. I think it was Dove Kleiman who had this. And so I don't know how much you want to.
Gnome creep.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I have it right. But it was a story about Nathaniel Hackett. And the idea being that the Jets are very much looking to hire someone who would be above Nathaniel Hackett in terms of like the play calling hierarchy.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers. Just give him a new title. Give him play caller and quarterback.
Oh, okay. This is SNY actually had this. That the Jets tried to hire someone to quote run the show on offense in place of Nathaniel Hackett.
Unbelievable, man. What a train wreck.
Absolute grifter. Like one of the all-time finesse kings in the history of football coaching, Nathaniel Hackett.
We also know the first Thursday night game, our guy Jason on YouTube was mentioning this, our resident Dolphins fan. Dolphins-Bills is your first Thursday night game of the year. That's a good matchup for Thursday night.
Thursday night on Prime.
On Prime, yeah. Not including opening night. Yeah, you're right.
That's on NBC, right?
Yes, correct. So, yeah, your first one that's actually billed as Thursday night football will be Bills Dolphins this year.
Just like when it was Chiefs Chargers had the first prime game 2 years ago. Yeah, I like that. I like having a marquee division matchup. Like that's a game you want to see and be a good start to the Amazon Prime schedule before it's just like Commanders and Bears all the way down.
Yeah, I was gonna say something like that. I was like, it's better that you start out with a bang, hopefully, rather than with the normal scheduling we see for Prime.
First impressions are important. We know those are a very important thing in life. Coming up next, we've got Random Question Tuesday. Then we'll talk some Chiefs football a little bit later on this hour here on 580 Sports Talk. Random Question Tuesday time here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, Spencer with you. I'm going to use my random question today, though, to bring in our summer intern, Trenton Kraxner, on the other side of the glass, running the board for us today. Trenton, I wanted to give you a chance. This is, I guess, less question and more so random statement Tuesday. But mentioned yesterday, you bring some actual native Kansan energy to the show here. So take this opportunity. Tell us a little bit about the favorites for you, the connections. Who are you rooting for? Who are you pulling for? Who are your teams?
Well, as a student at KU right now, obviously I grew up a KU fan.
Good.
Don't really
we need
like
more
anything
KU
purple.
on the show. I didn't bring enough KU to the show. We obviously needed more.
I don't really like the color purple. But that goes for everything. That's just beyond. That's not just K-State. That's like I just don't like the color. Obviously a big Chiefs and Royals fans. I cheer for a lot of the local teams. NBA, there's a lot of different teams that I cheer for. But kind of like Joel Embiid, so I pull for the Sixers and just get tortured every postseason because we can't make past the second round.
That's choice.
So yeah, Dan's gonna try to fight you.
No,
Dan
I don't need to fight.
He's a hater.
Scoreboard. I don't need to fight.
He's a big Embiid hater.
The Embiid Jokic debate is over. Embiid won't show up in Denver to play him, and Jokic has a title. The debate is over.
I mean, I don't mind Jokic. I enjoy cheering for the Nuggets. They got Christian Brown. Like I cheer for a lot of different NBA teams, but
you like the KU guys. Like you like to follow the KU guys.
So you mostly like the KU guys then?
Oh yeah. I like the connection from the KU guys. The NBA is one of those sports where you don't really have a local team unless you want to consider like the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there's like teams that like I don't mind seeing winning, and being successful. Like I can't stand the Lakers or the Celtics, but the Celtics hate is probably because they always beat the Sixers in the playoffs. So that probably has a little bit to do with it.
Makes sense. I can understand that. All right, so we not surprised to have the KU, the Chiefs, the Royals. This is good. It's been a while since we have had someone who is actually a Chiefs and Royals fan on the shows. This is a positive. We're glad to have a little of that. So wanted to give Trent a shout out. Do you remember I was talking about it yesterday when you played in state at Valley Falls a few years ago, 2A state at Brandlish Coliseum? I believe you were on that team, right?
Yeah. We made it my junior year too, but that was coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
So the first round games were satellite, so we actually hosted that game. We lost, so we didn't get to go. And then my senior year, we were the only undefeated team in the whole state on the boys' side.
That's right.
We beat Pitt Colgan. We came back from an 8-point deficit, with like a minute 15 left. Like we went on like a 17-4 run, being regulation. And then we ran to a really good St. Mary's team. They're coached by
Will Spradley.
Yeah, Will Spradley.
I
was blanking on his name. I knew he was a real good K-State player. They had a bunch of shooters. Keller Hurla, who's obviously on the Washburn football team now, and his cousin Brady. I think they were cousins. And they had Fred Creaky, who was 6'8" inside. I had to guard him, and I know you guys can't see him. I'm only like 6'2", and I had to play an undersized 5.
I can tell you for sure. Trenton is not 6'8".
No, yeah. For sure. Fred Creaky also had like a manly beard. He looked like he was 30. He's up at Doane now, up in Nebraska. We only lost by like 11, then we lost in the third place game. But I don't know. Did you call that Linden third place game too? Because Linden beat us in the third place game.
I don't believe I called the third. I think I was there semifinal. No, I was first round. I was there the Friday. Or I think it was the Friday of games. Yeah,
Friday would be the semifinals.
Semifinals. Okay, yeah, you're right. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Wednesday and Thursday, then Friday, Saturday. You're right. So yeah, I would have been there for the semifinals. I think maybe it was the first round. I honestly don't remember. I can barely remember what I did this morning. So I know I was there for one game, and I did call Trenton in action in a state tournament game back a few years ago.
I'm really starting to wonder now that we bring in another intern that's 6'2", how I ever got hired. Being sub 6 foot.
You're good at what you do.
Everybody here is a giant. Jake LeBon, a legit 6'5". You're 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
Trenton now 6'2". Like
I'm 6'2".
Yeah, I'm not. So so thank God there's not a sign outside that you must be this tall to join the sports staff.
I'm going to really bother you when I say this. I had a dream the other night that I measured myself and was only 6'1" and like woke up in a cold sweat. It's like, oh my God, what happened? I was terrified. And I'm glad that wasn't the reality. Trenton, we are very happy to have you here. Very excited to have you a part of the team this summer.
I appreciate it. I'm glad that you guys cover the sports because you have a different perspective from all over the country. So like, I think it's cool being the only native Kansan since you guys come from all different walks of life from around the continental United States.
Yeah, we're from all over.
Yeah.
So we offer a whole lot of different
The
things.
three of us check most of the 3 of the time zones. We
True.
We gotta get Californian in here or something
Yeah.
to give us the West Coast bias.
All right, Spencer, what's your random question for today?
What videos, if you go on like a YouTube rabbit hole, do you find yourself walking? Do you find yourself just coming back to all the time? I was on the YouTube rabbit hole last night, and then I thought about it. I keep finding, or like social media videos, I keep finding like the lawn care videos just keep coming up.
You had a stretch of that.
SB Mowing is this guy named SB Mowing. He's got a big YouTube channel. He just does like lawn care stuff for free for people. So I just keep finding myself like coming back to his videos.
That's pretty funny. For me, it's all the various guys. It's not like a house of highlights, but there's a number of guys on YouTube who just do like college football montages set to classical music. It's always those, like not Flight of the Valkyries, but music like that. The various overtures of classical music that do highlights of like top college football comebacks ever, top college football field storming moment. I've seen all of them a million times. That's always what it comes back to.
Stadiums.
Yes, it always comes back to stuff like that for me.
So the big 4 for me, the 4 videos that I cannot stop watching. Number 1, Nikola Jokic highlight compilations. I will watch. You put together 8 minutes of Nikola Jokic insane passes. I will watch it. I don't care what you soundtrack it with. I will watch it. Number 2, golf course drone flyovers. Golf Digest does a bunch of these. Like they just fly over all 18 holes of a golf course and explain like how you're supposed to play the course and who designed it, why it's designed this way. I find those to be very therapeutic. Number 3, the Wide World of Stadiums guy. It's this guy from Australia who does video reviews of stadiums. He did the MIAA football stadiums video that was very good. And the other is people cleaning rugs.
You told me about
Like
this
cleaning
before.
dirty rugs. I get a real big kick out of, man, the rug was dirty. It's clean now. They went over it with so much soap.
You had a bunch of power washing
Yes.
videos at one point you were binging, weren't you?
Power wash the rug.
Yeah, that's what it was. Power washing the rug.
The buffer thing with
Yeah.
like, they put googly eyes on it and its name is Dirt Reynolds.
Oh my God. Dirt Reynolds. Jeez. All right, Dan, what's your random question for today?
When you go out to a restaurant that you frequent, do you have a go-to order or do you switch it up?
It depends on the place. We were talking about this just yesterday leaving because
Yeah.
Dan and I ran into each other at Texas Roadhouse last Friday. Us and our respective wives, both named Abby with an E. We all ran into each other at Texas Roadhouse. And you were asking me just yesterday. I switched it up. I usually get the same thing. I did change which cut of steak I got, though, on Friday. And it depends on the place. Like, there are certain places like Taco Bell where I will rotate through a usual order. Recently, it's been the cheesy double beef burrito with a Crunchwrap Supreme. That's been the go-to. But I've had many different regular orders there. It just depends on the mood, really. But I guess depends on the restaurant. Some, yes. Some I'll mix it up.
There are some places that I'll go to, like if it's a Mexican restaurant, there are sometimes I'll kind of try a bunch of things and then I'll settle on, okay, this is a cut above. This makes me happy. This is why I'm here. I'm getting the mole enchiladas at Tequila's North or whatever it might be. But there are also some places where I do rotate it all the time. Like this is what I'm feeling today. Do I want the sandwich or the strips or the nuggets at Chick-fil-A? Do I want to get carnitas or do I want to get a big burrito or do I want to get street tacos at this particular Mexican restaurant? I believe variety is the spice of life.
So I'm a big like basics guy. So if I go to a Mexican restaurant, I'm getting a quesadilla, chicken quesadilla. Like,
so yours is even more general, like Mexican food, it's this one thing.
yes.
Okay.
And then if I go to like, your average American restaurant, I'm probably getting a burger.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'm feeling wings. But it's like 70-30 split.
I passed up on wings at a wing place just the other day and I regretted it big time. I should have gone with it. There's one particular restaurant that has a location in town that my wife and I go to fairly frequently. And I she has multiple times gotten things she likes. Then we'll go back and she'll order something different and she won't like it. And I tell her, honey, when we go, get the basics. Get the thing you know you like. Don't ask for substitutions. Like, if you like their burger, get the burger. Just get it. Do not try different things. You're going to like the staple, not the different things. Don't try the new wave orders.
That's how Abby is too. Abby knows exactly what she likes at every restaurant we go to, and very, very rarely deviates off the path. But she always leaves satisfied, right?
That's what you want.
Get what you like.
If you're going to spend on it, you might as well spend for something you know you're going to like.
Yeah, that's a fact. How much money it costs to go out. You better get something you like.
Mark does want to know, Dan, if you change your order at Popeyes. We know you are our local Popeyes expert.
Yes, as a Popeyes insider, Dan Lucero, yes, I rotate all the time. Sometimes it strips. Sometimes I go with 2-piece. Sometimes I get the sandwich. I usually rotate through. Every now and again, I'll feel like the tackle box, get a little shrimp. Like I contain multitudes when I pull up at Popeyes. Sometimes I will pull up at the Popeyes and not know what I'm going to order and just kind of blurt it out at the window.
Yeah.
And I am never disappointed.
I often do that.
If I go to Popeyes, it's a chicken sandwich. But when I used to go to Taco Bell, don't go to Taco Bell anymore. Doesn't like my stomach. That's a story that we don't need to get into. But I find myself like, yeah, give me a minute at the menu. If I'm at Taco Bell, give me a minute, and then I end up ordering the same thing.
So when I
usually get.
So you're the guy who, when they say take your time, you actually take your time.
It's like 30 seconds, 45 seconds.
Okay.
And then usually I just pick what I always get.
What you always get anyway. Coming up next, we've got some Chiefs football to get to here on 580 Sports Talk. Regarding the latter part of Random Question Tuesday, Christopher on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find the stream, says, Lord knows that with an average drive-through time of about 13 minutes, you have plenty of time to change your mind at Popeyes.
Sometimes it can be a little pokey.
That's the experience.
It's true. Yeah, part of the experience.
Along with maybe you won't get what you ordered.
Taco Bell on Wanamaker can be slow sometimes. I've had slow wait times at the McDonald's on Gage. Like, sometimes it happens. Sometimes it's just popping.
Look, I have patronized the Wanamaker Taco Bell many times. In fact, I patronized the Wanamaker Taco Bell on Sunday. It was not that long ago. Saying it can be slow is the nicest possible spin you can give to that establishment. And I do not mean to criticize anyone who works there. I know it is very busy. I also know I have wasted a lot of my life in that drive-thru.
There have been times when my wife and I have been out and about and say, oh, we could get Taco Bell tonight, maybe. Think Taco Bell might be a good option. We'll drive by it. If we see more than 4 cars in the drive-thru lane, we say, yeah, never mind.
If I'm getting lunch, and because they're right by each other, you can drive without getting back on Wanamaker to the McDonald's. If I see more than 3 cars, I say, okay, I am getting McDonald's. I am getting something else for lunch.
Nobody's quite perfected the drive-through like Chick-fil-A.
That's true. The efficiency is incredible.
That is a well-oiled machine. Like that line could be up to the front door at Kohl's, and you would get through it in 10 minutes.
Yes, that is a fact. I got in the other day because they've
restructured lot of locals only going on right now.
Yeah, no, extremely. Apologies if you live anywhere outside of Shawnee County. I was in it the other day, and I thought, damn, this is going to take me forever. I'm not going to get back to work in time. I did. I got back in like 10 minutes. It was absolutely incredible. We do have Chiefs football to get to. I do have something Chiefs planned for us. The NFL beat writers over at ESPN assembled their offseason power rankings this week. And they are post-free agency, post-draft. And they also included the most improved position for every team of the 32 NFL franchises. The Chiefs are number 1 in the rankings. They did not move. That is not a surprise for anyone. And Adam Teicher, who we've had on the show many times, he said that the most improved room is wide receiver, which I agree with. But I don't know that I completely agree with what he wrote about it in the wake of that selection. Adam writes, the Chiefs added Marquise Brown in free agency, wants to go by Hollywood, as well as Xavier Worthy through the draft, giving them a chance to have their first 1,000-yard wideout since they traded Tyreek Hill. But beyond the newcomers, Kansas City doesn't have much depth. Rashee Rice's availability for a full season is in question, and Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore are coming off disappointing seasons. With Rashee Rice, and we don't know how much of Rashee Rice the Chiefs are going to get this year. That is still up in the air. With Rashee Rice, I actually firmly disagree. I think the Chiefs' depth at wide receiver is a lot better this year. Your replacements for MVS and McCole Hardman are Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. And that right there pushes Justin Watson comfortably down to wide receiver 4 on your depth chart. I don't have a problem with Justin Watson, but I do like Justin Watson a whole lot more as wide receiver 4 than as wide receiver 3.
Oh, yeah.
I like that a lot more. And even if you miss Rashee Rice for anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks, apparently, okay, Justin Watson as your number 3 for 8 weeks is fine. You can live with that. The Chiefs did it for a whole season and won a Super Bowl. When you have Rice back, I think the depth at this wide receiver position, it might not be the world's best depth, but if you're talking about Kadarius Toney as wide receiver 4 or 5 or your gadget guy with legit dudes in front of him, that's a pretty solid room, all things considered, especially compared to last season.
I definitely think it's the most improved position group for the Chiefs, but it also kind of might be by default. Like, where have they meaningfully overhauled the rest of their roster, right? Like the interior defensive line is coming back intact. So are the edge guys, basically, because they re-signed Mike Dana. Defensive backfield, they lost more than they've added to this point, I think you would have to say, with the departures of Mike Edwards and L'Jarius Sneed. Linebacker, they lost Willie Gay, and but they kept Drew Tranquil. Like they kind of held their water, I guess, at linebacker. They changed punters. They're gonna have a new punter this year. That's not fun to write about. So yeah, I think it's wide receiver by default, and I do agree that they have meaningfully upgraded the talent level in that room. If you think about who's not there anymore, MVS, McCole Hardman, Richie James, like those guys are gone, and in their place you've got a proven commodity in Hollywood Brown and a first round talent in Xavier Worthy. That to me is an upgrade. Substantially, perhaps, depending on how ready Xavier Worthy is to contribute right away. I think that's a fair question. Like, I don't know what the answer to that is going to be. It is not frequent that rookie wide receivers make a big impact in Andy Reid offenses. That being said, Rashee Rice sure did.
Mhm.
And Xavier Worthy, physically, you have to say, even if you just narrow it down to the raw speed numbers, should be physically more capable of having an impact in the offense than maybe you would have said Rashee Rice was coming into the league.
One other position, I don't know that it's necessarily improved from last year, because I thought Mike Edwards was a great addition to last year's team and a big contributor, especially when Justin Reed was out with that concussion. And when Brian Cook got hurt, Mike Edwards had to play a lot. I thought he played pretty well overall last year for the Chiefs. But after he departed in free agency, to go out and add Jaden Hicks in the draft, and is he going to contribute a lot as a rookie? Hard to say, hard to predict. But I think that's a major boon too for that position group, because otherwise cornerback probably got worse, losing L'Jarius Sneed. Even if Jalen Watson steps up, even if Joshua Williams steps up, you lost a guy who probably should have been at least a second team All-Pro last year, if not a first team All-Pro in L'Jarius Sneed. Defensive line, it's the same. It's the exact same group that you ran with last year. You're doing the exact same thing. Linebacker, you lost Willie Gay and are just bumping up the responsibilities for Leo Chanel. That's essentially what you're doing at linebacker. Wide receiver, I think, is better. Tight end, is Jared Wiley as a rookie better than whatever you got from Blake Bell last season?
I think they'll be more productive in the passing game.
I would say so. So maybe you argue that is an improvement there. Running back, I don't think is improved, especially if you don't bring back McKinnon, and your quarterback is effectively the same. So other than that, you're right. I don't know that there are many other options outside of maybe tight end and maybe safety. And safety, you admittedly kind of have to stretch for that. The rest of your top five, by the way, in ESPN's power rankings, San Francisco comes in number 2. They list defensive end as their most improved, moving on from Randy Gregory and Chase Young. Man, they really signed Randy Gregory. And they replaced them with Leonard Floyd and what Nick Wagner of the 49ers beat calls promising youngster Yetur Gross-Matos. If he had been promising, he probably would have been re-signed by Buffalo, who actively said, nah, we're good. We're going to pass on that. Or was it? No, Carolina. That's where he was.
Carolina.
Carolina could use as much talent as possible.
A roster that has no business telling anybody with any kind of ability, yeah, man, we don't have any room for you.
The number 3 team, Baltimore, they say most improved at cornerback. Okay. Number 4, Detroit. Number 5, Philadelphia, with Philly getting the nod for their secondary being their most improved group. They went back and re-signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson after 1 year away, and then they drafted Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Yeah, they improved for sure.
They did.
They couldn't have gotten worse.
Right. I think the big question for the Eagles has nothing to do with what they run out there and just like, where's that team at? Because that looked like a team that was kind of fed up with each other and maybe fed up with who was calling the shots by the end of last year. Like, can they be in harmony? I think that's the big question for the Eagles, because talent-wise, yeah, they should be a top 5 team. They should be an NFC contender, unless you are not a Jalen Hurts believer, and I am. I think Jalen Hurts is really good.
Yeah.
I think the bigger issue for the Eagles is, like, are they singing from the same hymnal?
No, I think that's a very valid question. I think Jalen Hurts is good. I think he's hit his ceiling. Is that fair? Is that unfair to say?
Yeah, but I don't think that's unfair. But I think even if you acknowledge that, okay, if your belief is that Jalen Hurts isn't going to improve any more on what he is,
still a good player.
Yeah, what he is, I think, is still a upper echelon NFC quarterback. Notice the caveat, the qualifier there being NFC.
Yeah. Your bottom 5 on the flip side of this, New York Giants, at 28. The Arizona Cardinals at 29. I think that is underrating Arizona. I think they are going to be better than that this year.
They got a chance to be.
Yeah.
After last season, all of us, Matt Verderam acted like the Cardinals should have been dropped out of the NFL at the start of last season.
We all saw the
Relegation.
Jonathan Gannon videos meeting his players. The Logan Roy energy from Succession was off the charts, but they played hard for him. So,
yeah,
I mean, give him credit.
30, New England, most improved quarterback. Yeah, by default, almost. You're going to love this one. 31, the Denver Broncos.
Hard to argue. It really is hard to argue.
Most improved, they have their defensive line with the addition of Malcolm Roach in free agency and then trading for John Franklin Myers as well, which I don't necessarily disagree. Their line sucked.
Yeah,
John Franklin Myers is a good player.
Yeah, I think so too. Like a legitimate, like proven veteran pass rusher. They have not had that.
32, you guys can probably guess. Carolina. It's
Until further notice.
Yeah, man, that's bleak. That's really bleak where Carolina is right now. We've got more Chiefs football to get to as we lead off the 4 o'clock hour. Bill Barnwell, who I have a ton of respect for, I don't know if I necessarily agree with the take of his that the Chiefs need to add a pretty well-known veteran safety. We'll get to that. What is wrong with you? And Michael Swain is going to join us for this week's edition of Jayhawk Weekly. Plenty to get to on both the football and basketball fronts. All that is coming up after the national and local news right back here on 580 Sports Talk. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started. I'm Brendan. That's Dan. That's Spencer. Our intern, Trenton Craxner, here as well today. Halfway home on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll have Jayhawk Weekly a little bit later on this hour with Michael Swain of Fog.net, talking all things Jayhawks hoops and Jayhawks football. We also have today's What Is Wrong With You coming up and some Chiefs football to get to in just a moment. You are welcome to be a part of the show as well. You know how to do so. Either hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or you can find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. No more wasted money and no more wasted material, because with Top City Metal Supply, they will cut the exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel you need to fit your project's specifications. Find them right here in the capital city on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. The Chiefs defense, we just ran through it a little bit last hour, still going to be very good this year. Losing L'Jarius Sneed hurts, obviously. Mike Edwards played a big role last year, but Jaden Hicks, I think, is going to fill that role coming up this season. And the safety room of healthy Brian Cook, Justin Reed, rookie Jaden Hicks, as well as Shamari Connor, that's a good safety room. Connor really came on at the end of last season. That's a good room.
It feels to me like Connor is the guy that we're all kind of forgetting about. Maybe not maybe not Chiefs fans, but when there is conversation about the Chiefs roster and what their weaknesses might be, I think people are forgetting about what Shamari Connor's role could be. And that's because I don't know that he has a defined role necessarily. And I'll expand on what I mean a little bit as we go along in this segment. But I think that's a player who is being very under-discussed as far as what his impact could be on the 2024 Chiefs.
I think he's going to be a useful player. Steve Spagnuolo seems to think he is going to be a very useful player for this team. Andy Reid as well, so I have no reason to believe otherwise. Linebacker should be good again. Defensive line should be good again. The edge rushers, all of that should be a very good defense again. So it was interesting last week when we talked about Aaron Schatz's piece over at ESPN Plus about how he thought cornerback and cornerback depth specifically was the Chiefs' biggest roster hole. We unanimously disagreed with that. Then today, over again at ESPN Plus, Bill Barnwell, we read Bill Barnwell stuff all the time. I think Bill Barnwell is one of the best writers in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
And he does a great job.
Check for his stuff every Monday. Like, it's part of my Monday routine, like during the season in particular, to read what he had to say about the week's games, what angle he takes. Like, this is a guy I have a lot of regard for as an analyst.
And he came up with a few different potential trades or acquisitions that teams around the NFL could make. And a few guys who he has listed here are guys that I would be okay with the Chiefs taking a flyer on. Former Chief Emmanuel Ogbah signing with the Chicago Bears. That is one idea he came up with because the Bears desperately need some edge rusher help. He's got the Vikings going out and signing Hunter Renfrow. I would like the Chiefs to sign Hunter Renfrow. I think he'd be a useful player. The Vikings need wide receiver depth badly, badly, badly. Hunter Renfrow makes a lot of sense there. I don't personally think that his opinion for the Chiefs signing makes a whole lot of sense. He has the Chiefs as their theoretical move, signing what he has as safety / linebacker Jamal Adams. Here's the write-up from Barnwell. The Seahawks sent 2 first-rounders to acquire Adams back in 2020 from the Jets, then gave him a significant contract extension the next year. Things didn't pan out mostly because of injuries. He never played a full season in Seattle, missing 34 games over 4 seasons with various ailments. I would have loved to have seen him in new coach Mike McDonald's scheme as a blitzer, but his contract made that unrealistic. At this point, Adams needs to be spotted in a situational role as a strong safety and even a potential linebacker on passing downs. After he had 16 sacks from 2019 to 20, he hasn't had a single sack across the past 3 campaigns, so it remains to be seen whether the explosiveness that marked his earlier days is still there. At the right price, I have to believe that upside is worth the risk with Adams, who's just 28, and that he isn't the player, or the risk that he isn't the player he was earlier in his career. Get him to Chiefs coordinator Steve Spagnuolo, who can surely find a spot in the lineup for a player with Adams' talent and ability as a blitzer. They lost Mike Edwards and Willie Gay this offseason, and despite using a 4th rounder on Jaden Hicks, Adams could compete for a role as a situational safety and linebacker. There's a chance he might not make the team, but the Chiefs are shopping in the luxury aisle given their roster. If he will take a deal built around per game bonuses, I would love to see him in camp with Kansas City. You and I, Dan, view Jamal Adams a little bit differently.
Very differently.
I think Jamal Adams, as an idea, when he was drafted out of LSU, he felt like one of those guys. Deion Buchanan was the other one. Like this hybrid player who was essentially going to break defense. Like they were going to be the true, the cliche is the queen on the chessboard, right? Could do everything. In practice, I think Jamal Adams is a linebacker who refuses to play that position and demands to play safety. And I think his athleticism is gone. Like, I don't think he is a useful player anymore. Not as much because of the arrogance positionally, more so because he's had too many injuries. And I just don't think you are going to be able to get what you need out of him because of that anymore. Like this past year in Seattle was pretty sad. He only played 9 games. Again, injuries. It was pretty ugly.
Yeah, like in theory, the things that Jamal Adams can do or has done or has a track record of doing are tantalizing because they are rare. Like there aren't a lot of Swiss Army knife players the way that Adams was back in 2020 when the Seahawks first got him. A player that can create havoc on all 3 levels, who can track back and cover, who can make plays over the middle of the field, who can get up to the line of scrimmage and blitz and get to the quarterback. 16 sacks over a 2-year stretch for a safety is pretty remarkable. As they mentioned, though, in the story, he hasn't had a sack since. He's missed 34 games over the course of the last 4 seasons. And I watched plenty of Seahawks football last year. I think he's physically closer to cooked than he is to being what he could be in theory.
And that does suck for him. Like that's no matter what I think he's a jerk, but on the field, that sucks. Like,
Yeah,
to not have control over what effectively is the end of your career, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, he's had some unfortunate social media interactions with reporters that do not paint him in a very fond light, that's for sure. But we are talking about a camp invite here. Like you scroll the rest of Bill Barnwell's stories, and like these are like positions of need. Like the Bears need a pass rusher, Emmanuel Ogbah. The Vikings need another reliable pass catcher, and despite injuries, when he's been on the field, Hunter Renfrow has been that. For the Chiefs, they don't maybe need that. I want to go back to the point about the queen and the chessboard, right? Like the guy who can do everything, somebody who you can line up all over the field. You know who's supposed to be that player coming out of college? Tyrann Mathieu. The thought was, well, he can play the slot, he can play in the box, he can play deep middle if you need him to. He can impact the game in a lot of ways. And ultimately, Mathieu fell into a role that suited him best and specialized a little bit until he got to the Chiefs. And then Steve Spagnuolo did use him a little bit more creatively, did use him in a queen on the chessboard kind of role. And then L'Jarius Sneed became that player for the Chiefs, where you were just as likely to see him on the outside as you were to see him in the slot. You were as likely to see him blitz as you were likely to see him in coverage. Now, Sneed is built like a defensive back. Like there's no slash linebacker with him, like there might have been with Tyrann Mathieu early in his career.
Yeah.
And there's a broader point to be made, too, that if you're going to play linebacker in today's NFL, you got to be like 240, really.
Yeah.
Like the days of the 220-pound linebacker are rapidly coming to a close. The way that teams run the ball now, not that, the running game has now usurped the passing game, but just the way teams run the ball now. If you are too light in the seat, you're going to get washed out of plays completely. You got to be a little bigger. You got to be able to hold up. Like, I don't think the days of Levon Kirkland are coming back either, but you got to have a little meat on your bones if you're going to play linebacker in today's NFL. But that being said, back to my point about Sneed. He was the queen of the chessboard. Last year, Trent McDuffie almost served that role for the Chiefs, where he started lining up all over the field. He started being the blitzer out of the backfield. But I don't think that the Chiefs, as they are constructed right now, need one guy to be that player, because I think they have enough versatility in their defensive backfield and at the linebacker spot where, do they need a linebacker who can hold up against the run but is really effective blitzing off the edge? They have that guy. That's Leo Chanel. Do they need somebody who is comfortable in the slot or outside and can impact things as a blitzer from the slot? They have Trent McDuffie, who showed in big moments last year that he can impact the game as a pass rusher. oh, do they need somebody who can be a safety / coverage hybrid? I think Shamari Connor is that guy. I think he is that kind of player for this Chiefs defense. So the idea that you need one guy to be an all-in-one for Steve Spagnuolo, it's a nice thought, again, in theory. Just like Jamal Adams, the player, in theory,
Right.
is a really nice thought. But in practice, I don't think the Chiefs necessarily need one guy to do things. They've got a host of guys on their roster right now that I think can do a bunch of different things and allow Steve Spagnuolo to change up his looks within the defense on a given drive without necessarily changing his personnel.
And to be able to have other guys on the roster who can cover for someone who's put in a unique situation. And that's kind of word salad. But what I mean is, if you want Shamari Connor on any given down, any given play, any given package to be the blitzer, to be your slot blitzer, you've got a number of other guys who can cover for him. Just like you can have Shamari Connor cover for someone else in the slot with coverage or moving into the box. All these guys are able to cover different areas. The problem with, even beyond what he has been in his career, the problem with 2024 Jamal Adams is he would have one role, is that he would line up at weak side linebacker and he would blitz. And that's it. He's not doing anything else to cover for Leo Chanel if Chanel is doing the same thing from the other side, because I don't think Adams has that sideline to sideline ability anymore. If I'm the Chiefs at this point, I'm looking for someone who can give me multiple flavors, even if they're not going to be great at them. I'm looking at someone who can either A, offer me something offensively that we don't have. I'm talking about the wide receivers. Like Renfro is something the Chiefs do not have. Do you want that guy? Obviously not. Otherwise they could have signed him already, but that at least offers you something no one else on your team can do. I don't think you need to go out and sign someone right now who does something other guys do, but can't also do the things that those other guys do, like a Shamari Connor. So I don't know. I think, and Bill Barnwell has pretty much said as much on podcasts and whatnot before, sometimes you write things because it's the offseason and you have to write things. And you think, oh, this is an interesting idea. I'm going to flesh out the idea.
And like 3-4 years ago, like the idea would have been, it would be fun to see Jamal Adams in a Steve Spagnuolo defense. Like peak Jamal Adams in a Spagnuolo defense would have been a sight.
He would have.
Who would have been, if my math is correct here on how old Jamal Adams is, and I got to pull up his exact age here.
28.
His prime years, like we're talking 2019, his last year at the Jets, 2020, his first year with Seattle. He was first and second team All-Pro, respectively. That would have overlapped with the prime of Tyrann Mathieu, who was an All-Pro for the Kansas City Chiefs in those years.
And maybe not as good a blitzer as Adams, but did a lot of similar things.
Yes, and theoretically, you have two guys who can do everything. Matthew's always been a better coverage guy than Adams, but Adams is a better blitzer than Mathieu, and you could have done all those sorts of things. Nowadays, I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. The other ones listed in this piece from Bill Barnwell, I'll just go down the list for you. Jaguars trade for cornerback Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints. Makes sense for both teams in a world where everybody runs their team intelligently. The Jaguars need a corner. They need secondary help. They've needed secondary help for years. And the Saints need to rebuild. They need to tear it all down. They need to start over. They're not going to do that. At what point does going 7-10 or 8-9, maybe even a 9-8, at what point is that not good enough? And you think we need to have a higher ceiling than this? I would have done that years ago if I was the New Orleans Saints. I would have done that when Sean Payton left 3 years ago. Instead of having Dennis Allen do nothing except stand there with that dumb look on his face every single week.
That's how you know the Saints are satisfied with what they are, because they keep Dennis Allen around. Like any self-respecting franchise would have kicked Allen to the curb 2 years ago.
I don't get it, man. I do not understand why that team does what they do. That's what makes the NFL interesting, though, is that not every team is run the same way.
Right.
Like you can say, oh, we play the Saints this week. Maybe it'll be the 1 week where Derek Carr looks like an all-pro quarterback. Or it'll be one of the 16 other weeks where he doesn't and he can't handle a blitz. He's got the Raiders signing cornerback Adoree Jackson. That's one I whiffed on. I thought Adoree Jackson was going to be an all-pro. I thought he was going to be a superstar. If not as a corner, then as a kick returner. And he's not. He's not that dude. He was so good at USC.
Yeah.
So good at USC. Former Chief, old friend alert, he says Patriots should sign offensive tackle Donovan Smith.
They do need a left tackle.
Yeah.
Protecting your rookie quarterback is always the right thing to do. If I was the Patriots, I would have spent all offseason doing nothing but signing offensive tackles. Just find one who will win the job in camp. Keep someone else as a swing tackle and just live with it. As I mentioned, Vikings to sign Hunter Renfrow. I think that makes a lot of sense. Another wide receiver one says Lions should trade for Texans wide receiver Robert Woods. The Lions are really good. They're one of the contenders in the NFC. They should be the favorites to win the NFC North, and they are. Can you name a wide receiver for them outside of their top two, Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown?
So they lost Josh Reynolds, right?
They lost Josh Reynolds.
He went to Denver.
Correct, yes.
I don't know.
It's bleak. Khalif Raymond is wide receiver 3. Donovan Peoples-Jones ended up with the Lions last year.
Yeah, he did. I remember that.
Do you know who Tom Kennedy is?
One of the Kennedys, I presume.
A senator from Massachusetts. No, he's a wide receiver. Antoine Green.
Fake
Reese
name.
Fountain is on their depth chart.
Oh,
That's where he ended
old
up.
friend.
Traquan Smith is cashing a paycheck from them right now.
Nah, these are fake names. Traquan Smith, Antoine Green. Come on, man. These are AI-generated Madden draft class names.
Traquan Smith, I know, played for Sean Payton in New Orleans. I can't believe he's not in Denver right now. Antoine Green's fake. That's a fake player. I've never heard of this gentleman in my entire life. Apparently, he has played multiple years in the NFL. That's fake.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
That's not real at all. That would make sense if Detroit wanted to go get a wide receiver. Robert Woods, old. I don't know if he's any good anymore, but at least it's worth trying for. Also says Steelers should trade for Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks is bad. He's a bad NFL player. I was getting into it with the Chiefs blog on Twitter the other day, who suggested the Chiefs should go get Treylon Burks. And I thought, well, that'd be smart if he was good, but he's extremely not good.
Yeah, he's...
Finally, and I cannot believe this player is still available. In fact, two. I want to get to the last one here, too. Justin Simmons is still available.
That's wild to me.
That's crazy to me. It says Rams should sign him. Any team should sign him. He's a good player. And finally, another old friend alert, a personal friend of 580 Sports Talk. He says the Ravens should sign Dalton Reisner.
Yes. Yes, they should.
You know,
they should have done that yesterday.
There have been some rumors that Dalton has had some issues in locker rooms in Denver and Baltimore.
Yeah.
The Denver thing, I'm not going to hold that just against Dalton Reisner. That clearly was a divided locker room a couple years ago in the Hackett year. I'm not going to hold that against him. I don't know about Minnesota. I can't speak to it. All I know is he can still play, and not everyone hated him. Remember that fight they got in the sideline in Denver a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Dalton was not alone. He was not a lone wolf in that argument. That's all you have to say about that. You're a team that needs offensive line help badly if you're Baltimore. Why not? What is the reason you wouldn't go sign Dalton Reisner right now?
You need guards.
I know you can't prove a double negative.
They drafted a tackle, Rosengarten. But yeah, man, they need guys to play on the interior for them. And even like I think they're counting on just some guys like on the interior. Reisner's probably better than what they got on their roster right now.
Yeah.
Yes, no doubt
100%.
about that. I can't believe that either he or Justin Simmons is still available this time of year. What is wrong with you is coming up on the other side of this commercial break. Then we'll talk to Michael Swain later on this hour here on 580 Sports Talk. It is time for What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan, Dan, and Spencer in studio with you today. Our winner from yesterday, his name is Roderick Wilmont. He is a former Indiana University basketball player, and he is being accused in Florida of stealing the funds paid by parents and athletes for his AAU basketball program and using it on things like luxury vacations and OnlyFans subscriptions. Gross.
Yeah, not what you want for a leader of young people.
Did we get to our follow-up? Was that yesterday when I had this saved? Yes. Okay.
You had it in there, but
We did not get to it yesterday.
We did not get to it yesterday. I would like to get to this today. Do you remember the story from a week ago that featured Sean Hollenbach or Hollenbach? Does that name ring a bell?
He's the angry dad, right? Who pulled the gun on the Uber driver?
Yeah. So his teen daughter was coming home in an Uber, and he freaked out, ran outside with his AR-15. That has been disputed. It might have been a different form of rifle. But either way, ran out with a gun, a long gun, put it right in the Uber driver's face, forced him out of the Uber, put him on the ground, took a picture of his ID, just went absolutely ballistic. Well, we've got a write-up from Carblog Jalopnik about this gentleman and some more details in the case. His 13-year-old daughter had snuck out of the house and had taken an Uber to Pensacola, Florida, about a half an hour away from their home in Milton. Obviously, you should not be doing that. So when he discovered she had snuck out, he called the police, didn't get much help. Finally, she comes home after taking another Uber, and he puts the gun in his face. He also said this in an interview with WEAR News. That vehicle was completely unmarked. In my mind, this was not good, right? And everybody knows what's going on in this country with fentanyl and child trafficking and rape. Terrible stuff.
What a quote.
He also wanted to make sure this TV station knew that he was in the military. Says, quote, I served 31 years. I was an Army doctor. I trained as a Navy flight surgeon. I served with the 7th Special Forces Group. I served with the 160th. I served 6 tours. That, of course, only makes things worse because he, of course, should know the dangers of gunplay.
Right.
And unsafe gun handling.
Like, I get having been concerned if your 13-year-old daughter goes walkabout and you don't know where she is. Like, I can only imagine how horrifying that was.
Yeah.
But if they are then returned to me in like visibly okay health, my reaction would not be point the gun at the Uber driver. I like to think that my reaction would not be, I am going to hold the Uber driver hostage and scare him within an inch of his life. He might just be, he didn't expect that. He's an Uber driver, for God's sake.
His reasoning for holding the Uber driver like that is there's no markings.
Yeah, like
Very rarely do Ubers have markings unless they have a little thing in the front that says Uber.
yeah, this seems like more a problem with your distrust than anything else.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, the vast majority of this story has not been presented to the public whatsoever. And the vast majority of this is related to parental rights. In this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. If it goes to trial, I look forward to it because I want to get 12 moms and dads on that jury and judge if what I did was fair. Because I called for law enforcement and I didn't get them.
Okay, again,
That's not how it works.
maybe a bad job by local law enforcement. We can quibble about that. We cannot quibble that you did not need to drag the Uber driver out of the car and put a gun on him.
I, for one, cannot believe that this daughter wanted to sneak out.
Yeah, no kidding. What must
Shocked.
it be like living in that house?
Utterly shocked. All right, my story is going to take us to Tampa, Florida, where a temp worker stayed overnight at a Pinellas County waste facility and was found the next morning, fittingly, wasted, driving a company truck recklessly around the property after stealing a key from the manager's office. Deputies were summoned to the Pinellas County Waste Disposal Complex at 5:15 a.m. last Thursday after employees reported that a suspect had stolen a company vehicle and was recklessly driving it around the property. The responding deputy put her lights and sirens on to try to get the pickup driver to stop, but then he looked directly at the deputy and kept going. He was eventually stopped, but refused to exit the truck and had to be pulled out. He braced and tensed up as 4 deputies worked to put him in handcuffs. He was identified as 31-year-old Jonathan Wakefield of Clearwater, Florida. He was a temp employee that had taken 2 keys from a manager's office. He did not have permission to be in the office, nor was he allowed to drive any of the vehicles on site. Deputies also learned that Wakefield had failed to clock out after a shift the previous day, which is against company policies, which forbids employees from staying on the property overnight. He has been charged with burglary, grand theft auto, fleeing law enforcement, and resisting arrest. He also doesn't have a valid driver's license.
I just want to know where he got the booze. Like,
Dep-
how'd he get drunk?
That's a great question. Deputies checked a box in the arrest reports that note that Wakefield showed signs of being under the influence, but he is not currently facing a drunken driving charge. He has a 10-year record in Pinellas County that includes previous arrests on charges of burglary, grand theft, dealing in stolen property, and trespassing.
I mean,
So
obviously the waste place knew who they were hiring.
That's what you get sometimes.
did he bring the booze and plan this joyride and this like one person lock in at the waste facility, or did he snoop around and find like the stereotypical bottle of whiskey in the boss's bottom drawer and say, all right, now this night got interesting?
I'm gonna guess he brought his own MD 2020. I'm gonna guess the Mad Dog was his own. Yeah, that's my guess. So that's my story. Dan, what do you have today?
We meet Judge Brian Lovell from Garfield County in Oklahoma. He is already facing a felony case in Texas in connection with an alleged drive-by shooting and road rage crash.
Not good.
He now faces an indictment for allegedly perpetrating a different drive-by shooting at his brother-in-law's house in Oklahoma. The latest charges against the 58-year-old Lovell, who is an associate judge in Garfield County, stemmed from an incident that preceded the Texas case in the 2023 shooting timeline. On February 12, 2023, Lovell allegedly used a vehicle while intentionally shooting a Glock 23 40 caliber pistol with conscious disregard for the safety of another person or persons at or into a bison dwelling within Garfield County that belonged to his brother-in-law. Lovell attorney Stephen Jones told the Enid News and Eagle that while defendant and wife have fully cooperated, the state's evidence is too scant at the stage to lead to a conviction. Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond announced the drive-by shooting indictment last Thursday and said it was similar in nature to a shooting in Austin, Texas on September 11th of last year. That's approximately 7 months after the alleged Oklahoma drive-by. The AG said that Lovell reported his gun stolen 2 days after the February shooting, but authorities allege it was the same pistol used in the ensuing September 2023 shooting, in which Lovell is accused of whipping out a pistol while behind the wheel of an SUV, opening fire into at least 6 parked cars, and engaging in road rage ramming behavior. He was accused of twice ramming his SUV into a woman's car in an attempt to push the vehicle into oncoming traffic in the felony case. An affidavit said that Lovell discharged a firearm approximately 5 times while driving down the street that day, and the proof was in the bullet holes. Authorities also said that video recordings captured the drive-by bullet barrage, but even as cops tried to figure out what was going on with the shooting, there was a second 911 call about Lovell, about a crash he allegedly caused with intent. So, to line up the story, in September, Lovell was accused of this road rage incident. He said his gun got stolen in February. Now there is reason to believe that he used that same gun in February to shoot up his brother-in-law's house. This is the judge.
Jeez.
Hopefully not for long.
Yeah, he's skipping over. He's skipping over the jury part and going straight to executioner.
Yeah, I guess so. Man, what a loser. Look, I have been known to occasionally get a little frustrated when I drive.
Yeah.
Occasionally will maybe say a 4-letter word or two at a different driver, maybe say not very nice things about them. I have never thought, man, I got to stay strapped when I drive, even once. That to me is a gigantic leap. That is then another even more gargantuan leap to what this dude is doing. I hate this. I'm picking him to win today. I'll tell you that straight up. I'm picking this guy to win today.
I'll take the judge and executioner, but I don't think he beats OnlyFans basketball coach. Man, Roderick Wilmot disgracing the Hoosiers. Robert Vaden would be so disappointed in you.
It just makes me so mad for these family, especially. I'm going to pontificate for just a moment here. In an era when it is so hard to get any sort of traction in youth sports, you're just trying to do the best for your kid because maybe they'll be a superstar or maybe they're just trying to play. And you're taking their hard-earned money that is supposed to go to helping these kids, and you're using it for whacking material. It's just so inappropriate in so many different ways, and I'm so mad and I hate it. And I'm voting for Roderick Wilmot as
That
well.
is the first time I think that phrase has ever been used. In 580 Sports.
I'm so mad. That is our winner yet again in What Is Wrong With You, Roderick Wilmot, former Indiana Hoosier. Michael Swain is going to join us next right here on 580 Sports Talk. Bottom of the 4 o'clock hour on this Tuesday afternoon here on 580 Sports Talk, and that means it's time for Jayhawk Weekly with our good friend Michael Swain from Fog.net. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Make sure you go check out all of his great work at Fog.net, and you can follow Michael as well on Twitter at mswain247. Joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. What's going on, man? How you been?
Doing well. We're at the kind of weird part of the off season now. We're kind of basketball portal stuff's kind of slowing down a little bit. Football's not quite going super fast. It's kind of a nice little lull here before the crazy part of June and high school football recruiting picks up.
Let's get to the basketball transfer portal to start things off, because the most recent big news in the portal for KU has been Riley Kugel not going to make it to Lawrence. You had been telling us for a little while now that this is probably not a huge surprise. Don't know exactly what the credit issue is or whatever the academic issue is, but he will not be making it to Lawrence. How big of a blow is this to the KU roster to not have him on board next year?
Well, I think it's kind of a two-way street where on the one hand, I don't think Bill Self's going to, freak out or lose any sleep over it. But I also think it's one of those things that if you looked at the depth, right, of the team and you have Riley Kugel as that kind of seventh man, behind maybe a Zeke Mayo, you feel really good about that, right? That's a guy that has NBA talent that if he figures it out could have a future in the professional ranks. Like that's a pretty good player to have as your seventh spot. And in losing him, right, there's a little bit of a hit to the depth. And I think that is probably where the biggest hit comes. I don't think it's a huge deal. I don't think it's something that would impact necessarily the ceiling of Kansas, but I think it's one of those that can help just prolong some of these guys throughout the course of the season, where maybe you don't have to give them as many minutes. But I think, look, if you even go through and try and calculate all the minutes, I did that over the weekend and posted on our VIP board. Like, you look at it right now and it's pretty tight. Like, your starters are going to play, 29, 30 minutes. And if they're doing that, the minutes behind them, there's not necessarily a ton, right? Marco Jackson's kind of the big wild card there. I've got him slotted maybe 15 minutes a game. So you look at losing Kugel, that's kind of the area where that's a loss, where I'm not sure if it's the same impact as a losing AJ Storr or Rylan Griffin or Zeke Mayo would have been for this program.
How hard is it going to be for KU to find someone who can replicate what Bill Self and staff were hoping to get out of Riley Kugel this year? Because when you look at this roster, Michael, and you've obviously got your, 4 starters are for sure nailed on there. Who is going to, AJ Storr, assuming he's going to be one of the guys who starts for sure. Rylan Griffin, I think, is going to start. Zeke Mayo is there. You've got El Marco back, your bench bigs. I mean, you've got a lot of the roster and a lot of the rotation already set. So if KU wants to add another scholarship guy, how hard is it going to be to find someone who's willing to say, yeah, I'm cool coming in to be somewhere between the 7th and 9th guy in the rotation?
It's going to be a challenge. I think the thing that, KU's probably going to try and sell now is, hey, come here, help a team compete to win a championship. And you'll still play a lot, right? Because KU's going to try and add good players. So, you'll still have the chance to play 20-plus minutes per game. And obviously right now I think Jackson Robinson from BYU is kind of the guy that KU's really in on hard right now. But obviously we got to see if he's even going to come back to college. There's a chance he stays in the NBA draft. And for a guy like that who did come off the bench at BYU last year, you can kind of say, hey, that role you had last year you're so successful at, well, you can come here and do something very similar. And we may even have more minutes for you because your ability to maybe even play the 4. It may not be super sexy and not exactly the things that Bill Self wants in a classic 4-man, but Robinson played some 4 last year. He's got a great wingspan. He's a shooter. He really could space the floor around Hunter Dickinson. So, if KU misses on someone like that, maybe you see KU go after more of a project guy who can play a little bit next year, but then, potentially take a bigger jump heading into this season after, when KU does lose Hunter Dickinson, Zeke Mayo, KJ Adams, Juwan Harris, right? There's a lot of guys that are out of eligibility after this year. So it's going to be a challenge. And I think I'm really interested to see what happens if KU does not get someone like Robinson and the type of pivot they try and go with.
We're chatting with Michael Swain. This is Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Michael covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. You can also follow him on Twitter at mswain247. Some walk-on news for KU basketball today, Michael. I want to start with the commitment coming in for KU. What do you know about Will Thengvall? We got to see him this past spring. Well, earlier this spring, I should say. Dan was down there at the 5A state tournament and saw Will Thengvall look awesome. To me, a guy like this, I would never have thought he was going to be a high major basketball player, but he's a good athlete. He was a good high school player. To me, this screams adding more competition in practice, and I know Bill Self has really wanted to add that this offseason.
Totally. I think it's very similar to the Wilder Evers edition a couple years ago, where it's a guy who, in terms of his high school career, played really well. 5A state player of the year for Cap'n last year. Like, he's a good high school player, and I think it's more of an addition closer to that of Wilder Evers than maybe some of the other guys that are lower down, maybe on the walk-on list. So I think it's a good addition, and I think you're right. Like, just getting more guys that, hey, can come in and help the starters, right, and the actual rotation players by just competing and being a good basketball player. And I think KU is definitely going to try and continue to bolster out the walk-on spot. Obviously, Jankovic is gone. Chris Carter entered the portal earlier today. And so, KU's got another walk-on spot that they'll probably try and fill at some point this offseason. So I think for KU, right, you can never have too many good basketball players. And I think for a story like this, like, it's cool that it's a guy that's from Wichita, gets to come to KU, one of the better basketball programs in the country, from his home state, and gets to really try and compete and learn and be at KU for a long time. So I think it's a really great story.
You mentioned Chris Carter, and I know this is a lot of walk-on talk, and it really sounds like, wow, we're deep into the offseason now. But I do think it's kind of an interesting spot here with the transfer portal accessibility and with being able to transfer however many times you want and still being eligible. He redshirted at Cal State Northridge now 2 seasons ago, then came to KU, transferred in, walked onto the program, played like 30 seconds in one game against Texas Tech, I think it was, and now is out the door. Is this a situation sort of like what we thought was going to happen with Zach Clements this year? And Zach was on scholarship, but where you come back, you redshirt the year, you're not actually doing anything in games, but you're practicing, and then the coaches can put in a good word for you and get you some tape for your future school. Is that maybe what happened with Chris Carter here?
I think it more has to do with Marcus Adams, right? They were from the same AAU program coming out of high school. So I think that's where that kind of relationship went. And KU needed walk-ons, right? I think as many walk-ons as possible was kind of a joke over the summer last year. Like, how many more walk-ons can KU add? Because the fact that KU was going to be short on scholarship players. And so I think obviously once, Marcus Adams leaves and obviously I think KU's going to continue to add more walk-ons and he's probably going to go try and find a place where he can play, which obviously you can't blame him. So it's kind of just you part ways, you feel pretty good about it for both sides, right? Everyone got the benefit, and you just kind of move on. It's kind of how it's a little bit transactional, but I think that's kind of what college sports are right now.
The guys who have entered the NBA draft, Kevin McCullough, obviously out of eligibility. He's not done a whole lot at the combine because he's still recovering from some of the injuries from this past year and an offseason procedure. Johnny Furphy, not participating in the scrimmages. How many people have asked you, Michael, in the last day or so, despite the fact that you've been reporting for weeks and weeks that he is not coming back to KU, have asked you, does this mean he's coming back to KU?
A lot. And it's cool. It's how it works. I think this time last year, right, there weren't too many people who were going to say, hey, Kevin McCullough's going to come back because he was dead set on leaving. And then he gets feedback and there's discussions with KU and obviously things change. But with Furphy, I think this is pretty nailed on. Like, he's going to go. And if you're a VIP board member, like you probably saw earlier today, where Eric Bossi dropped out, where he could even go to in the draft. Like, he's going up draft boards right now. He is not sliding down them. So I think it's pretty clear he's going to the draft. And now I think every KU fan should root for, lottery Furphy. Like, that'd be a great story. And you look at the draft picks KU has had, if Furphy does go lottery this year, you're talking about, 3 years in a row where a lottery wing has gone from Kansas. It's a pretty good recruiting pitch for Bill Self as they hit the portal, next season and seasons to follow, right? You're talking about high school portal, different ways to recruit. Hey, you come here, we will help you become an NBA player on the wing. And that's a huge thing. So for Furphy, it's really cool. It's awesome that he is taking full advantage of this and has a good chance of getting a really, really nice contract and start his NBA career.
Michael Swain is joining us. He covers the Kansas Jayhawks over at Fog.net. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. This is Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Let's transition over to football, Michael. And with the portal also kind of simmering down at this point, it's already been a great portal period for KU since spring practice ended. Amir Herring, the offensive lineman from Michigan, Bai Jobe, the defensive end from Michigan State. There aren't a ton of bodies still out there in the portal, but there are some decent players. How aggressive do you think KU is going to be? And I know you've done some reporting on this over at Fog.net. How aggressive will KU be in still trying to add a little more talent if they can?
Well, not super aggressive, because I think there's really just one guy that's really on the board right now, and that's Bryce Foster from Texas A&M. It's kind of a situation where, KU, by my projections, is full on scholarships, and I don't know how this is going to work. If Bryce Foster does decide he wants to go to KU, I'm not sure if it's going to mean something for a high school recruit or if someone is already planning on quitting football that I don't know about or that isn't made public yet. We'll have to see. But, Bryce Foster's a guy that started multiple years at Texas A&M, and you can say what you want about the Texas A&M football program in terms of wins and losses and all the drama with NIL. I mean, he started multiple years at center and started as a freshman. Like, this is a guy that's incredibly talented and would walk into the offensive line room, and I would tap him as the clear favorite to start at center for KU this fall. So when you have an opportunity like that to go and add a really good player who can help shore up one of the more important position groups in football, you take that opportunity and you pursue it until it ends. And so KU is pursuing it. And it's, reported this morning he'll visit at some point. It sounds like probably late May, early June, right? He's going to go to Oregon this weekend, sounds like. Then he's got NCAA tournament regionals. He does shot put. Then he'll do that. And then if he does not make nationals, then he'll take visits. If he does make nationals, it might complicate things a little bit because those are the first week of June. So lots to be figured out there still. But yeah, KU definitely in the mix for one more player in the portal for football.
How willing is KU to allow someone to come to the program who is so into and so invested in another sport? Like, I know Devin Neal played baseball for 2 seasons, I believe it was, at KU, but Devin is kind of a special case because he's your hometown guy, and I think we know at this point he's one of the most important players that KU has ever had, certainly in the modern era. If Foster is so committed to track and field along with football, is that something that KU is willing to deal with?
Yes, they are. And they've shown that, right? You mentioned it with Devin Neal, right? If you're playing another sport, they're willing to work with you on it, especially if you're a impactful player like that. So it's something that this doesn't even get that far because Bryce Foster is going to do track at his next school. There's no question about that. And so KU would not be in the mix like this right now if they weren't going to let him do track. So I think that's something that's pretty much already been cleared up. Like, I think the coaching staff will be okay with it. And I think Foster is really, really passionate about track. Like, he loves it. And I don't think you want to try and go after a guy and say, hey, actually, no, you can't do track. You can't do the thing you really like. So I think it's one of those things that's probably already been cleared up.
And it's also something, too, that I'm assuming is a little bit different than when Keon Coleman was once committed to KU to play football and basketball. I don't mean any disrespect to the living legend Stanley Redwine, because he is one of the best in the business when it comes to track coaches. But I have a feeling committing to football and track at KU is a little bit different than committing to football and basketball.
Super different, because you're talking about, right, sports that bleed over, right? If you're playing football, I mean, you're missing some basketball games, where if you're doing football, yeah, spring football is a little bit of a challenge, but also KU practices in the morning. That's something you got to keep in mind here. So theoretically, he can do both if he is up for it. So yeah, I think it's something that it's a lot different than Keon Coleman doing basketball and football, just because the way the timing of the calendar works.
All right, Michael, last thing I've got for you before we let you go here on this Tuesday afternoon. Not KU related, but college basketball related. I have to get your thought on Doug Gottlieb being hired to be a head basketball coach. He has never been a head coach before. He's jumping right into a D1 job at Wisconsin Green Bay while still doing a radio show. How big of a failure is this going to be? Is it going to be a 1-year deal or 2 years before he gets fired?
It's going to be awful. It's going to be awful. Like, I don't know, like what, yeah, it's not going to go well, right? You're not going to be a head basketball coach while doing a radio show every day, right? I think it's like a 2 or 3 hour radio show also. It's not a short one. So it's not going to go well. Good for them for getting a headline about it, whatever, people are going to talk about him for a week, but no, I don't think this is going to work out.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks better than anyone, and you can find his work at fog.net. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We've been talking about all the great reporting Michael's done over on the VIP side of things, so go subscribe. 100% worth it. We're all subscribers to 24/7 here, and absolutely recommend that you are as well. Make sure you're following Michael on Twitter, too, at mswain247. Appreciate the time as always, man. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Sounds great. Talk to you next week.
That's Michael Swain from Fog.net joining us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. I know you were very impressed, Dan, at the 5A state tournament by the newest Kansas Jayhawk.
Yeah, Will Thengvall can really play. He has a knack for getting to the spots where he can score. That is really rare for a high school player. And like just the knowledge of his own game and the strength and the will to be able to get there over and over again. He was super impressive. He was the best player in that tournament. He's the reason Capon won the state championship. And if nothing else, makes that program better from, like you said, a practice perspective.
Competitiveness in practice. That is a big deal. It's something Bill Self has really wanted, and Will Thengvall can do that, no doubt about that. We've got 1 hour left of 580 Sports Talk after the news, and we'll lead it off with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. now. Final hour of 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, and Trenton Craxner here with you today. One more hour left on the show. Then a little bit of your old pal Dave Ramsey before we get to Royals baseball tonight. Game 2 between the Royals and the Mariners from T-Mobile Ballpark in Seattle. First pitch just after 8:30. Pregame begins at 8 o'clock. You can hear pre-post and the game itself right here on 580 WIBW, your home in Northeast Kansas for Royals baseball ever since they first took the field all the way back in 1969. We'll preview that game a little bit later on this hour. We'll also get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines, the playoff roundup, your texts to the Top City Metal Supply text line, and your comments on the YouTube stream, all coming up in this final hour of the show today. Some very nice words from our pal Jeffrey on the YouTube comments today. Says, you guys are take Einsteins with vast sports knowledge. Love it.
The take Einsteins, by the way, not like taken as a sports talk show. Like we could do that. We could adopt it.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Could be an hour of the show.
Yeah, Vance on YouTube also earlier said this looks like the Sports Talk mosh pit, and I thought, because we're all in the same room now as opposed to having the multi-camera setup, we're all on one camera on YouTube. The Pit is actually a sick sports talk show name.
Yeah,
like
that.
noon to 2, The Pit.
Get in the pit.
With G-Dog, Money Man. Like, everyone's got to have a dumb nickname. And all the personalities would probably be awful.
On ESPN 540, if that was a real place.
The Mighty 1090. That's what it sounds like. No, but we do appreciate all the comments on YouTube. You can also find the stream just on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. You can find the YouTube stream on our website, 580WIBW.com. Also live on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk and on Facebook, where the page is WIBW News. Let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Our first headline of the day. I'm going to go with a little addition to our news from earlier with the Chiefs' schedule coming out piece by piece. We already found out earlier today that the Chiefs will be playing the Bengals in week 2. We also know now that in week 7, according to Jordan Schultz, NFL reporter and just general sports reporter for Bleacher Report, that they will take on the San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl rematch, October 20th. That is week 7. That game will be on Fox. Tom Brady will be on the call for the Super Bowl rematch. The team of his childhood versus the team that has set up the first dynasty post-Patriots. So that is now week 1, Chiefs versus Ravens at Arrowhead. Week 2, Chiefs versus Bengals at Arrowhead. And then week 7, Chiefs versus 49ers. I believe that game will be in Santa Clara, if I'm not mistaken. I will double check that really quickly. But yes, that game will be in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium. So that is your current outlook for the Chiefs. Just one of their first 3 announced games so far in prime time, which means of their other 14 games,
5 of them are going
5
to
will
be
in prime time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Probably
will be
2 to 3 divisional games.
Yeah.
At least 2 divisional games at this point. It feels like we'll probably get a Chargers,
Texans,
and a Raiders maybe on a Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Texans feels like prime time bait. Bills feels like prime time.
I am going to guess that one of the primetime games is a Raiders game because national broadcasts love to do bits on Gardner Minshew.
God, he is going to be their quarterback.
They're going to do ESPN is going to have a graphic of a Gardner Minshew cartoon wearing jean shorts showing all the different places he's lived and played quarterback traveling in a van. I am calling that right now, May 14th, 2024. That is a graphic we are going to see on a primetime broadcast this year. We're going to see that with Gardner Minshew, probably against the Kansas City Chiefs. But that is your latest Chiefs update. Also, when we were talking schedule earlier, one other note, this was reported by Jacksonville.com and was then aggregated by the USA Today newspaper. The Jaguars reportedly are going to play back-to-back games in London again this year. They did that last year as well against the Falcons and was it the Colts? I don't remember who the other team was that they played. The Bills. It was the Bills.
Yeah.
They played back-to-back
beat
games
the
in
Bills.
London. Yes, they did.
Because they were used to living on London
Yeah,
time.
because that was the whole thing. Was
that was
like
the second week. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. And
they might as well move there.
yeah, Jacksonville.com reporting that is going to happen again. One of them against the Bears. The Bears, I believe, would be the home team for that game. Not sure who the other one is against. We will find this all out coming up tomorrow, 7 o'clock is when the NFL schedule release show will hit the airwaves.
You guys gonna watch that? Like, sit down and crack open a cold beverage, and I'm gonna watch the schedule release show. Hold my calls. We're ordering in, and I'm watching the schedule show.
Believe it or not, the only time I think I've ever intentionally said, I want to watch this, was a few years ago. They had all of the number one broadcast crews. So they had Buck and Aikman still at Fox. They had Nance and Romo, Michaels. I don't think Collinsworth did it, but Al Michaels and whichever the other crew would have been for Monday Night Football. They had them all together, and they did like a 20-minute round table essentially talking about it. I wanted to watch that, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that kind of is an interesting angle.
It pretty much was just Al Michaels saying, well, NBC has the best games, and Joe Buck said, well, hold on there, Al. Fox has the best games. But it was kind of cool. Otherwise, I keep Twitter open so I can see all the social media videos and how all the different teams announce it. That's the fun part of it, is seeing how the teams one up each other.
How are the Chargers going to top their anime-inspired videos of the past couple of years? How are the Titans going to top their schedule release last year, in which they had various people down on Broadway in Nashville trying to identify teams by their logos?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was so funny. The one woman got so excited. She's like, "Oh, Cowboys! That's Texans. No, Cowboys. I know it." It was the Colts. It was the horseshoe. Yeah, that was pretty good. I would just watch another one of those, to be honest with you.
The best was my favorite was the woman who saw the Jaguars logo and says, that actually doesn't exist.
What do they call the Falcons? Oh, they call the Falcons something really funny too. They're like the RAR birds or something like that. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to tomorrow night is the video releases.
The schedule release videos can be pretty good, but I can wait on those. I do not need to watch an NFL commercial, because that is essentially what the schedule release is.
Yeah, we talk enough NFL during the day. Don't need an extra commercial for it. All right, Dan, what's your first headline today?
First headline for me today. The folks at Prime Video have announced a series of 4 sports documentaries and documentary series that they expect to release on Prime Video in the coming year, I guess. And some of these sound like they'll be really good. We've got a 4-part documentary about Dale Earnhardt Sr., the most influential figure that NASCAR has ever known. The history of the Earnhardt family's history of NASCAR. I'm reading from a press release in case that wasn't obvious. You can't tell the story of one without the other. The untitled Earnhardt documentary promises a profound, revealing, and definitive account of a historic American family. I'm not a big NASCAR guy. I'm in on a Dale Earnhardt documentary.
That comes after Dale Jr. signs with Prime Video, as they will hold or broadcast NASCAR next year.
Why? What a coinky-dink.
Yeah.
Raise hail, praise Dale.
Like he did with Peacock. He had series on Peacock when he was with NBC.
There will also be a 4-part series about the history of the Madden video game series, untitled EA Madden documentary, revealing the never-been-told story of Madden NFL from its archaic 8-bit origins to its success as an annual must-have. That is what I would have referred to. I have not bought a new Madden. I haven't bought it annually in over a decade.
In a long time.
But so a documentary about the history of the Madden video game. Also an anthology series, a 5-part anthology series about some of the greatest Game 7s of all time. It will be called Game 7. One of the producers is Mark Messier. So I'm sure you can probably think about one of the Game 7s that might be involved. Also, Danny DeVito is attached as a producer.
Hell yeah.
An executive producer of this. And most pertinent to our local audience, a documentary has been announced titled Chiefsaholic, A Wolf in Chiefs Clothing.
Enough.
Great title. 10 out of 10 title.
That is a good title.
A true crime documentary that unravels the story of Kansas City Chiefs superfan and serial bank robber Xavier Babidar, famously known as Chiefsaholic. Through interviews granted by Babidar himself, people will note that his voice did not appear in the ESPN Sports Center featured documentary about the case. He spoke via letters that were received by his lawyer. But Babidar is actually sitting down and speaking for this documentary. Chiefsaholic, A Wolf in Chiefs Clothing, explores critical moments in the events surrounding Babidar's arrest and offers a firsthand perspective on his subsequent jersey. Presented by Prime Video. There's a reason I'm reading the credits here. Chiefsaholic, a wolf in Chiefs clothing, is produced by Dream Crew Entertainment, North of Now, and 5 All in the Fifth Entertainment, and directed by Dylan Sayers. It is executive produced by Aubrey Drake Graham of Dream Crew Entertainment.
Why is Drake wanting to get involved here? Why is Drake an executive producer on this? Why are you putting your name on anything now?
Listen,
Get out of my face. You lost.
If I were Drake,
He already had this planned out before all that.
I would be pivoting very hard out of rap music and into literally anything else.
Pivoting to video.
But I would like to be off the camera and out of the spotlight, please. I would like to produce some documentaries. But for those wondering, Babadar will not be paid to appear in this documentary. Any money, profit, whatever that might go to participants for something like this, those are going to go to the people he owes money. And he owes a lot of people a lot of money because, again, he is a convicted bank robber. So this is not something where, man, this feels icky. He's going to profit off of this. No. His creditors are going to get some money off of this, though, and that's probably good. So anyway, these things are all coming out on Prime Video, so you have to be subscribed to Prime Video to see them. But I'll watch all of this, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
All of that seems
I will
great.
I will watch as much of this as I can get my wife to agree to watch with me.
This is a great lineup. Really, really good. I'm excited for the 2016 World Series Game 7 feature in the Game 7 series, personally.
If it's not,
No, it is. It's in
It's
the press
listed as one of them.
Yeah.
Going to be in there. Yeah, it'll be there. Come on, you can't pass that one up. Spencer, what you got?
what do I got? We'll stay here with kind of media news, as we knew a couple weeks ago, or maybe this was last week, that Jason Kelsey had finalized a deal with ESPN over Prime, over Fox, over NBC. Well, we now know whose place he's taking on Monday Night Countdown. Robert Griffin III is out after a couple of seasons as a analyst on the Monday Night Countdown show that they revamped a few years ago. I'm glad. I'm done with RG3 content on like the running of the bird or whatever that he did in Seattle.
Yeah, he raced the Seahawks.
Race the Seahawk like that. No, like we don't want to see that.
Yeah, I find Robert Griffin III to be really
I already
obnoxious.
hate when he posts little snippets of his podcast on social media.
Yeah, I've been telling you guys over and over, every day there's a new Kelsey headline. They are not going anywhere. Jason will be everywhere forever. Travis will be everywhere forever.
But we'll get to see Kelsey on coverage of the Super Bowl here in 2027 because it's now ESPN in their renegotiated deal with the NFL and the media rights. They will have a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they'll get it in on ABC in just a few years. Next up for me today, big day in basketball. It's WNBA opening night. There is obviously a whole lot of renewed interest in the Women's National Basketball Association tonight. 3 games that will take place: the New York Liberty and the DC Mystics, the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun. That game is going to draw a whole lot of eyeballs because you know whose professional debut it is: Caitlin Clark. And then in the nightcap tonight, the Minnesota Lynx and the Seattle Storm. 2 of those 3 games tonight will be on ESPN2 if you want to watch them on cable. The other game will be on ESPN3 and WNBA League Pass. You're going to get into the WNBA this year?
We'll see if I have the time. Like it will honestly be like I am interested. Like my interest is peaked. I will say that in a way that it really hasn't been by the WNBA. I have watched more of the college game the last few years, and so I know few more of the names in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So my interest is peaked. How much of it am I going to actually sit down to watch? That I don't know. That I'm not ready to commit to yet. But I am curious how Caitlin Clark does. Like I am interested in how Chicago's experiment with drafting the 2 best bigs in women's college basketball last year, Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, how that works out for them. Even though it's going to be a while for Cardoso, she's out 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury, is my understanding. I'll be very interested to see how that goes, but I don't know how, like, if I'm going to, again, clear the schedule, crack a cold one, and I'm going to watch like the Mystics and the Mercury. Like, I don't know if it's going to be that.
This from my guy, Shane Jackson from BetMGM, says that tonight there are 3 times as many bets on the Fever and Suns game, or Fever and Sun game as any other WNBA game. The most bet player prop in the WNBA or the NBA playoffs is on Caitlin Clark's points over tonight.
Wait, 20.5, I think I saw.
I have not actually seen what the number is, but I would not be surprised.
Did
Also,
you see the Caitlin Clark effect? It's $110 to get into the game tonight.
I believe it.
And,
She's an attraction.
The next game for the Sun, it's like $17 is the get in price.
She is the biggest deal in American sports right now.
They outsold, I think, like most of their home games last year.
Wow.
Just for tonight.
That'll be a sight to behold, no doubt about that. Also, Phoenix and Las Vegas also play today. Las Vegas worth watching because they are better than everyone else by a lot.
Two-time defending champs, went like 34-6 last year, blitzkrieg their way to a title. They got the best player in the league, arguably, in Asia Wilson.
Not arguably. She's it. Asia Wilson rules. She's awesome. They did lose Candace Parker, though.
They did, but they didn't really have her for the playoffs last year.
No, they didn't.
See, like there has been a little bit more attention paid
Yeah.
the last few years, I think, to this. But like again, it's tough. If we had a local angle, like we had a team in Kansas City, or if there was a team, like if there was a Denver team, I'm not gonna lie, like I would be more interested if I had a personal tie or a professional tie to one of the teams. Unfortunately, that's not what we have yet. But the league is expanding. The Golden State next year. They released their branding today. I don't know if you saw that. They're going to
The Valkyries.
The Valkyries. What a badass.
I like that name.
It's really cool.
Super unique.
Yeah.
Toronto is going to get the 16th team. That has been widely reported. There's enough talent out there that the league could probably go to 18 or even 20 teams, and we'll see if they continue to expand. I think Kansas City would be an awesome WNBA city. I really do.
Yeah, they'd get great crowds.
I think they draw really well. I think the team, they play at the T-Mobile Center. They could play at Municipal, but I think they could do well at the T-Mobile Center, to be completely honest.
Heck, somebody with the name Patrick might invest in said team.
It's an investor in the KC Current, hyping up women's sports the other day at the Time Magazine banquet gala thing. If he wants a team, they'll get a team. He wanted Whataburger, they got Whataburger right in Kansas City. Yeah. If he wants a team, they'll get a team.
He just makes things happen. It is time for everybody's favorite segment within a segment. Is Trenton ready? We got it? Fire it up. Let's do it.
It's time for the 580 Sports Talk Playoff Roundup.
Already better than you at doing that, Spencer. I hate to say.
I don't know. You had to ask him 3 times. Are you ready? Ready?
I had to make sure I had the confidence.
I did let him know earlier today. I said around 5:20ish. Dan's gonna say, "Are you ready? Hit it," and then you're gonna click this button, and you have to have this up with these on, and then it'll play.
Sideswipe them, man.
It is time for the playoff roundup here on the 580 Sports Talk headlines.
Trenton, good job.
It was well done, Trenton. In the NBA last night, without Donovan Mitchell, the Cleveland Cavaliers fought valiantly and covered. Hopefully that wasn't too injurious to the bank account of one Brendan Dworzinski.
No, I did not end up pulling the trigger on it, and I was very happy that I did not waste my money on the Bozo Celtics.
They shot the you-know-what out of the basketball in the first half, and the Celtics played with their food, but Boston hangs on in the end for a 109-102 win in Cleveland. So Boston has a 3-1 series lead in that Eastern Conference semifinal. Out west, the Dallas Mavericks gagged up a 14-point lead, missed 11 of 23 free throws. This is allegedly a professional basketball team, and they choked on applesauce last night. The Thunder rally back and tie that series at 2 games apiece with a 100-96 win. So after the start of these semifinals, where it looked like it might be fairly drama-free, all of a sudden we have 3 tied series going to Game 5. 2 of those Game 5s are tonight. Pivotal Game 5. It's always pivotal Game 5 when it's a 2-2 series. You ever notice that?
Always.
It's always the pivotal Game 5. The Pacers and the Knicks at the Garden, the Timberwolves and the Nuggets in Denver. That game is going to tip off at 9:50 roughly Central Time.
Hell yeah.
8:50 Mountain for the folks in Denver. 9:50 Central, which affects yours truly. Really hope they win tonight.
10:50 Eastern for a
that
playoff
game
would
be 10:50 Eastern time. Yep.
That is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I guess part of the reason they pushed it back is because they want to give a TV window to the WNBA opener. They
That
want to
makes
get
sense,
they want to
yeah.
give the WNBA
They
opener,
are partners,
the
right?
Caitlin Clark's first game, a window.
That
And
makes
so
sense.
as a result, the Pacers and the Knicks are tipping off at 8:00 Eastern time. And then so 8:00 local time for the Knicks and 8:40, 8:50 local time for Denver. That is late. It's gonna be a long night for your boy. Unless, well, either way, it's gonna be a long night for your boy. On Frozen Pond.
You're not turning it off one way or the other.
No, I'm not saying turning it off. I'm saying like how I handle the results.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
How I handle the result. In the NHL last night, Carolina Hurricanes will not die. They rallied with 4 goals in the third period to beat the New York Rangers 4-1, narrowing the deficit in that series to 3-2, going back to Raleigh for Game 6 tomorrow night. The Colorado Avalanche lost their leading scorer in these playoffs, forward Valerie Nichushkin, to a 6-month suspension for a violation of the substance abuse policy in the NHL. Nichushkin had already previously entered the substance abuse program earlier this season and missed close to 2 months of action. But if you violate the program that you're supposed to be on coming out of the program, then you are automatically suspended for 6 months. And the Avalanche found out about that sometime after their morning skate yesterday. They were also down one of their top 2 defensemen, Devon Taves, because he was sick. Unsurprisingly, the Avs played like dookie butt and lost 5-1 to the Dallas Stars, who now lead that Western Conference semifinal 3-1. Tonight, the Florida Panthers try to close out the Boston Bruins, Game 5 of that series in Florida, and Edmonton looks to tie their series with Vancouver. They trail the Canucks 2-1. Oilers making a goalie change at home tonight. Calvin Pickard, not good enough for the Avalanche. An Avalanche castoff will start Game 4.
How's the confidence level?
In what?
The Avs.
Oh, they're toast. They're
Okay.
done. They're completely
They're
done.
done.
No. They this is going to be the third time in 5 years that they lose to a Pete DeBoer coach team in the second round. San Jose in 19, Vegas in 21. They play disgusting, gross anti-hockey, and the Avalanche haven't figured out how to beat it. It is what it is.
In college basketball, we'd call that a junk defense.
It's revolting. Like, it's unwatchable, and then you get to the score line. Like, also, like, the one guy who's big and physical and gets to the front of the net and gets the greasy goals you need against a team like that, suspended for 6 months.
Yeah, that's not a great position to be in. That wraps up the playoff roundup, and that wraps up as well today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, we will preview Royals versus Mariners tonight and Big 12 football win totals. We'll do some over-unders coming up here in just a moment on 580 Sports Talk. 6:31. This is 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, and Spencer Dupuis here with you. Trenton Craxner on the other side of the glass today. NFL schedule news has dominated a whole lot of headlines today. However, there's been some college football scheduling news as well. ESPN has announced a handful of their early season key games, including where they're going for college game day first couple weeks of the year. They're going to Ireland for the whatever they call the Aer Lingus game, whatever they call it. Notre Dame versus Texas A&M. They will play in week 1. That'll also get college game day. It's Florida State someone this year, I think, that are going overseas. Georgia Tech, maybe. They're going overseas for the Ireland game this year. Other notable games that are coming up in week 1, Thursday night, North Dakota State versus Colorado. The whole country is going to be watching that game the first Thursday of the season. Whole world is going to get to see if Coach Prime and the Buffs fall flat on their face against North Dakota State.
And much of the country is going to be rooting for that outcome.
Absolutely will be rooting for that outcome. Let's see. Other notable games from the early part of the season. Clemson versus Georgia. That's the first Saturday of the year. Miami, Florida.
That's the Chick-fil-A game. The
Yes.
Chick-fil-A kickoff game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
USC, LSU, that first Sunday of the year. They've been doing that one Sunday, one Monday game the last couple of years before the NFL starts.
But another Chick-fil-A sponsored event.
Yes.
This one is in Las Vegas.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. See, usually all the Chick-fil-A sponsored stuff is in Georgia. Usually they don't.
Well,
their
they
headquarters.
I think they sponsored the one that LSU and Florida State played in.
I guess that was in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, no, that was in the what is it called? The Dome, Superdome.
Oh, really? Oh,
What?
man, I blanked on that detail. Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah. And then the Monday game, man, if this don't get your motor running, I don't know what will. Boston College at Florida State.
Truly, we are blessed to get both Florida State games, both of their first 2 games in marquee time slots. If you would like to know the other games that ESPN will be broadcasting over the course of the opening weekend, the first Friday night of the year, August 30th, Temple at Oklahoma.
All right. Sick.
Murder fest.
Love that.
That's a doubleheader, actually.
Oh,
You get a classic Big 12 versus ACC showdown as TCU travels to Stanford.
I'm so mad. So stupid. Whole thing is so stupid.
So, yeah, Temple at Oklahoma, TCU at Stanford. If on August 30th, you can correctly identify which league all 4 of those teams are in, ESPN will fly Kirk Herbstreit to your house.
And he'll willingly do
And
it.
he will barbecue ribs for you.
Uh,
The Miami-Florida game, that's a Saturday afternoon
Mhm.
game. Also on that Saturday afternoon, Colorado State at Texas on ESPN. Western Kentucky at Alabama that opening Saturday.
oh, boy.
Notre Dame at Texas A&M that Saturday as well. That's a national TV game.
And that's the game day game. Yeah, that's where game day will be for that opener. The other networks that have announced games so far, CBS and their Big Ten package, they've already announced that they will have Notre Dame, Purdue on September 14th, USC, Michigan on September 21st. Also, CBS is getting the Big Ten championship game. How does Fox not get that game?
I don't know.
How is that possible?
I have to imagine, like, I think that what I understand is that the networks kind of draft games.
Yes.
And Fox's first pick is always going to be Michigan, Ohio State.
I guess
So
that makes sense.
if they're just splitting the pie on the Big Ten TV package, Michigan, Ohio State is still the game you want. That's the game you want over the conference championship game. Because it might be the conference championship game.
Always gets played at 11 too.
Yeah,
So
so
it fits very naturally into Big Noon.
Slots right into Big Noon. Peacock or NBC, you've got their games as
Yes,
well?
I do.
Yeah.
So week 1, Saturday the 31st of August, Michigan versus Fresno State.
Hey,
Oh, boy.
anyone, anywhere, anytime, baby.
Week 2, though, this is going to get some eyeballs. Live from Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska versus Colorado. Prime time for Prime 2 weeks in a row.
Memorial Stadium in Lincoln is going to be frothing for that game. I'm not able to recall the last time I think there's going to be an atmosphere at a Nebraska home football game like they're going to get for that one. because they can lie about it all they want.
Mhm.
They care about the Colorado game.
Of course
Like,
they do.
maybe they don't care about it as much as their dads or grandpas cared about the Oklahoma game in the 70s. But y'all care. Like, Nebraska, they care about that Colorado game. And they really care about getting their lick back after they got embarrassed in Boulder.
In a game
year.
they should have won.
Yes.
Yeah, it's I think Nebraska might kill them. Nebraska's got a coach.
Yeah.
Colorado's got a TV star.
Yeah.
Which is mean, but
insurance salesman.
Yeah, it is what it is. The other college football thing I wanted to make sure we got to, via the Action Network, we've got your Big 12 win totals this year. There's a tie at the top, both K-State and Utah. 9.5 is your Vegas win total. Too high or too low? Or just right.
I think it sounds about right. Like, I think they should be about a 9-win team this year. I think that's about where they should end up. I still have some concerns about the defense and the offensive line, and we'll certainly expand on those as we get closer to media day and the start of the season. But they answer those questions in the affirmative, and usually they get production out of their offensive line. Like, they figure that out. They're well coached. They recruit the right kids. They get good offensive line play. It may not be as locked in as it was when he had all 5 returning starters last year, but they should get good offensive line play. If their defense is like what it was last year before the Iowa State game, I think they should be in good shape to win 9 or more.
I think that number's right on for K-State. The only reason I would not say hammer Utah over, Utah better go over, is it's going to be a lot of new faces that Utah's playing. Utah better be good this year, and I think they will be. I like Kyle Whittingham a lot. I like that team a lot. I like the way they handle their business. But Utah's going to have a whole bunch of different teams that they are going up against that they are not used to facing this year. Their schedule will include in conference play at Oklahoma State. They get Arizona State, host TCU, at Houston, they should win. They host BYU for the Holy War, at Colorado, hosting Iowa State, at UCF. That last one is going to be a really rough trip for the final game of the year. They had better win 11 games this year. They should win 11 games. That is a pretty favorable schedule. At Oklahoma State, it's going to be rough. That's going to be a tough one. Hosting Arizona, that should be fun. They should win every other game on their schedule, just looking at it at first blush. The third highest win total in Vegas, the Kansas Jayhawks, 8.5. I am leaning with the over there. I still have my worries about the defensive front. I like the interior. I like those guys, even though it's kind of a no-name group. I have some major concerns about the edges. If the freshman plus by Job can figure out a way to get after the quarterback, KU should get over 9. Should go 9+. They really should. Offensive line's a little turned over. I still like the offensive talent. If Daniels is healthy, I like that group a lot. I just have worries about whether or not they can win up front defensively. That is my number one, by a mile, concern for this team. And if they can figure it out, I would take the over happily.
And that was the concern last year, wasn't it? Like, who was going to make plays up front?
Yeah.
Who was going to make plays in the trenches? And Austin Booker broke out, and Gage Keys produced, and they found guys who made it happen. They developed guys who made that happen. Can they do it again?
It'll be tough. It will be very tough. I like the schedule overall for KU this year. Non-conference, you have a Lindenwood at Illinois, UNLV at home.
Should be 3-0.
Should be 3-0 in that group. You go to West Virginia. That'll be tough. West Virginia's a tough place to play. KU should be better than West Virginia.
Especially, well, West Virginia's improved from the last couple of years, I think.
I think they have too, but I think my point is more about KU should be the better team. Like KU, if you're going to act, KU fans, some say, oh, what about the playoff? 12 teams, maybe we get in. Let's worry about the conference first before we worry about that. If you want to be considered among the upper echelon, beat West Virginia on the road. You should be better than that West Virginia team. Can you get TCU at home? You should kill Arizona State. You should beat Houston at home. Although I'm sure Willie Fritz will be pumped up about that game. Are you going to win at the Bill? Probably not. Just speaking historically, probably not going to win that game. I hope KU does, but probably not. K-State's got KU's number. Iowa State is a tough game. BYU on the road in Provo. They'll be crazy. Should beat Colorado. Should beat Baylor because Baylor's going to stink this year. Can you win 9? I think so. You should be able to. With the team you've got coming back, you should be able to win that many. Arizona at 7.5. Same number as Iowa State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Tech, and UCF. All at 7.5.
Jeez.
I will be hammering that Oklahoma State over.
Yeah, that seemed low, doesn't it?
Way low. Way low. And you know my thoughts on Mike Gundy, late stage Mike Gundy. I think the game has largely passed him by. They have everyone back, including Ollie Gordon, their best player, and a 34-year-old quarterback in Alan Bowman. They better win 8 games. I'd be shocked if they did not. Your lowest totals in the conference, 3 teams at 5.5 wins. That's Baylor, Cincinnati, and Colorado. I like the under for all of them.
Yeah,
I like all of those unders.
I love that Colorado under.
Yuck. And then finally, tied for last at 4.5 wins, Arizona State, BYU, Houston. I kind of like the over for Houston. I haven't looked at their schedule closely. I think Fritz is going to have them at least kind of frisky. I don't know that they'll be good. In fact, I'm sure they'll be pretty bad, all things considered, but I don't know. It's year 0 for them, so it's kind of hard to predict. Okay, they don't have a great schedule. They have a stretch where they have Kansas, Utah, K-State, Arizona in October and November. That's pretty awful. That's a pretty gross group, all things considered right there. Arizona State and Baylor and Cincinnati, I think, will be, and Colorado. That'd be my bottom 4. That's my bottom quadrant.
Arizona State's non-con?
Arizona State's non-conference, let me pull this up for you really quickly. Their non-conference schedule this year includes Wyoming at home, Mississippi State at home, at Texas State. Why are they going to Texas State?
Good question.
Why are you
How
playing
did
that
Texas
game?
State pull that?
Jeez.
The Sun Belt team?
That Arizona State could be 2-10. Like that could be a 2-10 football team.
Yeah. They have to go at Tech, play. They host KU, but KU's gonna be way better than them. Host Utah, that's a loss. Arizona State at Cincinnati, dumpster juice game of the year. Gross. At Oklahoma State, loss. At K-State, loss. Host UCF. That's going to be a tough game for UCF with the travel. Host BYU. BYU, I think, will lose. Or I'm sorry. They'll lose to BYU. And then they have the Territorial Cup to end the season against Arizona. I think Arizona will mop the floor with them in Tucson. Yeah, that's going to be a gross team. And I like Kenny Dillingham, but they don't have a very full cupboard at this point in Arizona. That'll do it for some college football talk. I'm so excited for the college football season. I'm more and more, as we have faded out from college basketball portal into the next stage of the college sports calendar, very, very excited for the football season to start. We have to get to a timeout, but when we come back on the other side of this break, Royals-Mariners game 2 tonight, we'll preview the Waka versus Gilbert matchup here on 580 Sports Talk. Tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk, you will hear our crew for approximately 24 minutes. That is when we will be on from 2:06, our daily start time, until 2:30 when Royals pregame starts. Royals versus Mariners tomorrow afternoon. 3:10, is that the first pitch? 3:07?
Yes, 3:10.
Something like that, yeah. 3:10 first pitch, Royals versus Mariners tomorrow for the series finale. We'll break that game down coming up on Thursday's show, and we'll be back with a full 4-hour program for you. Tonight, it is Royals versus Mariners Game 2. Michael Wacha on the mound for the Royals. Logan Gilbert will go for the Mariners. Wacha was not great his last time out. We talked about that on Friday's show last week after he got the win on Thursday over the Angels, but still pretty solid. Avoided the big inning, got out of a jam, got through 5, all positive. Meanwhile, Logan Gilbert has had a good year. He's a really good pitcher. He's got good stuff. I like watching Logan Gilbert pitch a lot. I think he and George Kirby are a blast to watch as someone who enjoys a good low-scoring pitcher's duel kind of game. Hope that's what we get tonight. But by the same token, the Royals offense needs a little bit more than they got against Kirby yesterday.
Yeah, to say the least. Need to strike while the iron is hot and hopefully jump on Gilbert early. Going with a pretty typical lineup: Garcia, Witt, Pasquantino, Perez, Massey, your top 5. Velasquez is DHing, Melendez in left, Renfroe in right. Garrett Hampson getting the nod in center field. Another day out of the starting lineup for Kyle Isbell. Sacrificing defense in a big ballpark. I don't know if I love that, honestly. And if they were going to play a lesser defender in center field, I would have rather play the hot hand in Dairon Blanco, personally, instead of the not hot hand in Garrett Hampson, who has never once in his life been the hot hand. Also, Logan Gilbert is right-handed. I don't know why you sit Isbell for this unless he's got something going on.
Yeah. I will say your 2 best hitters for the Royals have faced Gilbert the most, and they have the most success. Salvi in 13 at-bats is hitting 308. And Witt Jr. hit in 9 at-bats, is hitting 5.56. Both of them with at least 1 homer. Salvador with 2.
All right. Well, if you're looking for something positive out of this matchup, that would certainly be it. And again, like we talked about earlier, the Royals have done a really good job this year of avoiding meltdowns, of avoiding spirals that have been such a problem in the last couple of years, where it feels like, God, this team is never going to win a game again. We can't get out of our own way, things like that. The Royals have done a good job of staying afloat and not letting themselves get into those death spirals this year. And hopefully this is that kind of game. I mean, Gilbert's good. I keep talking about how much I like Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. Logan Gilbert is also not like, I don't know, name a great Nolan Ryan. Like, he's not all-time great necessarily. You can get to him. He is gettable. I just hope they're able to do so tonight. That's an interesting point about Isbell and not giving him the start with a big outfield, though.
Yeah, I like him out there better in ballparks where, you're going to need to play some defense. You're going to need to cover a lot of ground out in center field. Dairon Blanco cost the Royals defensively when he failed to make that play on Cal Raleigh's ball. Now, I know it's deep. I know it's an unfamiliar center field probably to Blanco. Probably hasn't played a lot there. Maybe couldn't feel a wall quite as well as he needed to. But still, that's a catch you got to make. Like that is an out you have to get. It shortens the inning. It shortens the workload on your starting pitcher. Run would have scored it anyway because they were 1st and 3rd at the time. But that's the catch you got to make. You got to get behind that ball and make that catch. So I think Isbell is an outstanding defender. I'm on record with that, and I think that he's a guy that if he's healthy to be playing, should be playing.
Isbell is 1 for 7 against Gilbert. Not that I don't think that played a role into it. But.
Yeah, I'm probably not a big enough sample, but at least worth noting for this. The bottom third of the order, really the bottom half, if you want to throw in Nelly at DH in the 6 hole. There's such a drop off in confidence. Like, no team is saying, yeah, we're going to bludgeon you with 7, 8, 9. That's the murderer's row in our lineup. The bottom, no team does that. But, like, Garcia, okay, he's been swinging a pretty decent bat over the last few weeks. Bobby Witt Jr. is a superstar. Pasquantino has been awesome. Salvi is a franchise legend. Michael Massey's been swinging a good stick recently. They're pretty confident in that 5, honestly. That's a good 5.
Yeah.
Velasquez is going to hit a home run once every 8 times he strikes out. Melendez has just been all out of sorts recently. Renfroe has been miserable all year. And your boy Garrett Hampson. We've seen those movies.
Yeah. He is what he is.
Yeah, it's tough, but it is what it is. As you said, hopefully Michael Wacha can set the tone here. If you get a good outing from Michael Wacha at the very least, and you are allowing if you get a quality start out of him tonight, 3 runs or fewer in 6 innings or more, you're going to have a chance to win. Yeah. It's not like Seattle's bullpen is unbelievable. You're going to have a chance.
Munoz is unbelievable. He had to get 4 outs last night.
Yeah, so hopefully you don't end up having to see him today. I know they DFA'd Tyson Miller. The Cubs traded for him yesterday. I know I saw a lot of Mariners fans who said, we don't know why we DFA'd him in the first place. He was having a good year so far. That's a gettable bullpen. You got to do something more than 5 singles and 1 double. Something a little bit more offensively against Logan Gilbert tonight. Again,
a double, I don't even think really should have been a double, right?
A misplay in the alley, a miscommunication. It may have been a double. I don't know if Pasquantino scores without the. Without
I don't know if it's 2 RBI double.
So 8:00 pregame start time tonight. 8:40 first pitch, and you'll be able to hear all of the action. Royals versus Mariners right here on 580 WIBW. We have to get to one final commercial break. We will come on back, wrap things up with the final word after this on 580 Sports Talk. All right, let's wrap up 580 Sports Talk. We've got the final word. Dan, you're up first.
Yes, it's true that the Chiefs have 2 tough games to start the 2024 season. The Ravens in their home opener on Thursday night, and then the Sunday home game against the Bengals. But have you considered that the Ravens and Bengals have the arduous task of coming to play the champs on the road in one of their first 2 games this year? They're not locked in there with them. They're locked in there with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are not locked in there with these other teams. The Chiefs are the danger. Have some championship swagger. Be excited about the chance to go 2-0 against division rival or against conference rivals to start the year.
The Nats currently up 3 over the White Sox in game 1 of their doubleheader today. It's going to be nice to see some wins pile up for them. I also just got a peek at the bobblehead that I'm going to be getting when I go to their game May 25th. The Lane Train bobblehead. He's sitting in a train with a bat on his arm or on his shoulder. Looks kind of sick. Also nice to be out here. That's my final word.
Final word for me today when it comes to the Kansas Jayhawks. Adding Kansas kids, always a positive. We know how much banter there is about that when it comes to football recruiting for KU and K-State. But bringing in someone who is the kind of athlete that Will Thengvall is from Capon. He is the 5A Player of the Year, state champion at Capon as well. I'm not going to complain about adding that guy to the practice court for KU. Bill Self was not lying about trying to get better next year and doing everything he could to get there. Adding tougher practice players obviously helps. Tomorrow, very short show for us. We're on from just 2 until 2:30 before Royals baseball pregame begins. We're back with a full show coming up on Thursday. For Spencer, for Dan, and for Trenton Craxner, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This has been 580 Sports Talk.